Welcome back to the channel. This is Trendy Storm and you are watching fourth and final part of What If Naruto has light release. If you enjoyed this video, please like, share and subscribe to this channel. Now wasting no time, let's start the story.
The whiskered blonde sneered, but those intruders can wait for a while since we have some serious issues to discuss. Such as? Hiruzen inquired. Naruto said softly as he shifted into his seat and waited for the others and the Hokage to take a seat. There are some things that I was planning to present to the council after I reformed my clan. But since it happened sooner than planned, I will bring them up now. Please sit down since we still have time before the official time ends. They did so shortly after, though some of them complained. You may begin. Hiruzen nodded. Naruto glanced at them and saw Shukaku rolling his eyes. Thank you, honored council. I kept you here because of some troublesome issues that came to think. His face lit up a little at this. To keep it short, the issues are: the village security is horrendous. The ninja requalification exams are deplorably subpar and the academy is the worst of all. Shukaku wondered, what do you mean I mean Uzumaki-san? I noticed that Nara-san and I extend the same words as I offered to Aburame-san. The same for the Inuzuka, Uchiha, Akamichi and Yamanaka clans, although I don't know if your daughter's voice attack on my eardrums during academy is considered assault. Yamanaka-san. I think that she and Sakura Haruno would have reinvented the definition of stealth during those years. I mean, they could have functioned as Konoha's invasion alarm. Naruto rubbed his ear with his pinky, earning a few snickers and a shut up look from Inoichi. Anyway, back to the main subject. As I was saying, the village's security is absolutely subpar, he said as he took out a straightforward scroll and opening it. Chunin guards that can be easily fooled by simple hinges, easily accessible Anbu barracks, no defense from the Hokage mountainside, easily climbable walls that surround the village. The tree line stretches until the base of those walls, giving protection against projectiles and jutsu to the enemy. Basic security checks for incoming and outgoing people. All in all, the only thing that keeps us in one piece is our shinobi numbers and our position as number one in the world, but that can be easily taken away from us if, say, Kumo would decide to attack us. Considering the faults we have, we wouldn't last a siege. It would be a massacre. Even a smaller village could outdo us if they would manage to sneak in during an event like the October 10th Kyuubi Defeat Festival. Sighing. I agree with some of what you said, but easily accessible Anbu barracks. That is where the T&I is located, and the prisoner ward. It is by far the most secure place in the village, even more secure than the Hokage Tower. How is it unguarded? Replied Hiruzen. Naruto laughed. Remember that time when the Anbu had pink armor and cloaks? The council gave a startled blink. You did that? Inoichi inquired. With his hands behind his head, the spiky blonde addressed an enraged Inoichi, saying, snuck inside the laundry using the air ducts and put paint powder in the detergent boxes. Why you? He exclaimed, slamming his hands into the table. The man opened his eyes wide before adopting a contemplative stance as Naruto adopted a more solemn expression. Yes, me. You were lucky that it was me. If it had been a missing nin, he could have easily sabotaged your clothes with poison, exploding tags and whatnot. The child breathed a sigh of relief and resumed. I have a few propositions to fix these issues, but they need reviewing. We will better discuss this in a later meeting. Thankfully, our village's intelligence networks are the best in the world, so we should still get an early warning if a major mobilization is needed. Now about the second issue. The village's shinobi should be required to partake in a very thorough psychological examination every year. Before you ask me why, it is to reduce the number of missing nin that emerge from our village. While we have the most powerful shinobi, we also have the most powerful missing nin, and that is a serious cause of concern. Orochimaru, Itachi, Madara are prime examples of this. This needs to stop. The final sentence. This will also be discussed in the future, as the most important issue right now is the academy. The civilian council was just beginning to awaken by this point, but they were still having difficulties expressing their thoughts. What is wrong with the academy? Was fortunately the question Choji posed for them. Naruto grinned and said, there is nothing wrong with it. But you said there is an important issue regarding it, Sume said, raising an eyebrow. Like I said, nothing is wrong with it, if you consider a 66% rate of failure acceptable. I mean, take a look at this year's crop. Teams 1 to 6 failed and only 7 to 10 passed. All of those who passed come from families with military background, even Sakura Haruno, who comes from a family of retired shinobi. Ain't that right, Counselor Haruno? The kid took a look at the woman with the scowl and nod. And those who have only the basic academy training and pass the test have a 97% chance of dying on their first mission outside the village, should they encounter a situation that exceeds facing more than a poorly armed and trained bandit. Shiitake hit the table. Nonsense. The academy was founded by the Neodaime Hokage Tobirama Senju. It has given us good shinobi since then. You can't dare to say that. The boy yelled at the man. I dare mushroom. Hiruzen and, surprisingly, Danzo displayed some sadness and regret. The teachings of the academy have fallen drastically. The only notable teams that have survived the wars wholly are Sandaime Sama's and Ino Chikacho combo. Most of the rest have at least one member or sensei that have died or have been incapacitated. Actually, even Neodaime Sama fell to the enemy in the Second Ninja World War. The majority of the Shinobi Council and the Hokage chuckled as Naruto sighed. Look, I'm not saying the academy is faulty, it's the academics that are presented. It is too focused on mental academics and too little on shinobi training. I mean, take Iruka Yumino. The guy is a superb shinobi all-rounder and a born sensei, but he puts everyone to sleep before he actually get to something useful in his lectures. There are also many facts that are painfully wrong placed, like separation of male and female shinobi training and sparring. Haruno retorted, that was necessary as there is no way the girls can compete with guys. While an Anbu guard wearing a cat mask growled inaudibly. Ahahaha. That's a good one, counselor. Do you know that one with 3 shinobi and a kunai? Wait, you're serious? Then tell me, why are the teams formed usually with 1 girl and 2 guys? If your logic was valid, then the female member would jeopardize the other's safety. Not only that, do you think that on missions that are not conducted inside the village the enemy would care if they were girls or not? But considering that your statement is a step short of stupid, I will tell you this. The reason the girls can't usually compete with the guys is because of a disease. The blonde crossed his hands and looked deathly serious, while everyone leaned in an inquisitive manner. That disease is called acute fangirl syndrome. Naruto flashed his foxy grin, and everyone was taken aback by this statement. It manifests in 98% of the female academy students, and its symptoms are dieting, a phobia of everything that comes close to dirt, prolonged time spent in front of a mirror dolling up for their crush. The boy finished in a matter-of-factly manner, using his fingers to indicate quotation marks. The results of this disease is the lack of muscle and subsequently stamina required by decent shinobi, refusal to get down and dirty. That is not even the tip of the ice jutsu. Academy taijutsu is absolutely useless against specialized styles. Actually, nothing short of a bandit would fall to those moves. Yes, it is a building block for the students to advance into a preferable style, but when they graduate they're expected to hold their own. The worrisome factor is the near or absolute lack of useful shinobi material like international politics, team building, assassination tactics, espionage tactics, seduction, interrogation methods, and the list goes on. Of those dandelions you call students, 9 out of 10 would freeze during their first kill, leaving them and their team in a vulnerable situation. You leave too much to their Chunin sensei to correct when you could mold the proverbial iron while it's hot. Wait a minute, said Shiitake. Those so-called classed would turn them into mindless killing machines. With a bewildered expression, Naruto questioned, are you serious, counselor? Those are standard shinobi clan teachings, and you don't see them as mindless? Haruno questioned the other members of the shinobi council, is that true? Indeed, Hiyashi replied. Those are necessary skills for a ninja, replied Shibi. Our clans teach them these as soon as they are able to walk. Not only that, the environment nurtures this type of development. Naruto went on, like it or not, counselor, the academy does not produce heroes, it produces assassins with a conscience, even Yondaime-sama. We may love him as a hero, but think of Iwa, he practically butchered them and they hate him with a passion. We say that he was a great man, but they only see the hundreds of graves that they had to dig in his wake. That is the world that we live in, and this is a shinobi village. Once you put on this headband, Naruto raised his thumb to point to his headgear, you swear your life to this job. You become the instrument of salvation for your home and the avatar of destruction to your enemies, and only the one with the strongest will survives. And I aim to burn the will of fire into the souls of the younger generation. The blonde said, rising from his seat. The shinobi side nodded in agreement. The civilians took a mental step back and buried themselves in their seat cushions as Naruto opened his eyes and continued, I know you don't trust me, scratch that, you downright resent my existence. The feeling is mutual, I assure you. But let me make some things clear to you. I could destroy this village anytime I desire. They went colorless as Naruto pointed to the crater his void wave had left behind and remarked, I didn't even break a sweat. Imagine 1,000 times more powerful than that and you will know my limit. Hokage-sama, will you assist me in a small demonstration? The blonde asked Hiruzen, letting out another sigh. After a moment of looking perplexed, Hiruzen nodded and grinned before joining the boy who had moved to the other end of the table. Naruto unfolded a tiny scroll there. Before pulling out a kunai, Naruto grabbed a piece of ordinary paper and let it fall on the knife. This is a standard low-powered sealing scroll. Think about it as the polar opposite to the Yondaime's Hokage no Fuin Shiki, which is one of the most powerful seals that have ever existed. It can contain any normal inanimate objects. When the paper got to the kunai's edge, it broke in two as he put it above the unrolled scroll. He added, "As you can see, this kunai is the real deal." Then, with a half seal, the kunai vanished and fresh marks emerged on the scroll. Then Naruto raised the scroll and rolled it up. He tossed it to Shukaku and said, "Please verify. The kunai has been sealed inside the scroll." Before he unlocked and resealed the kunai, Shukaku mumbled something unruly. The man tossed the scroll back to Naruto and said, "Verified." Everyone was interested in this. By this point Naruto grinned and then used the scroll to cut at the Hokage's body. Sarutobi Hiruzen was, as it turns out, ticklish. The boy then proceeded to jab the scroll at the elderly man. Naruto threw the scroll at the elderly Kage's head when he laughed more loudly, and it naturally bounced off after a noticeable bonk. The scroll just deflected off his ever-present armor helmet, and Hiruzen said, "I'll admit that I haven't laughed that hard in a while, but was there any other reason for this exhibition, Naruto?" In between giggles. The council was beginning to grasp the gist of Naruto's analysis of the scroll when the boy said, "That's strange. I mean, I sealed the kunai into the scroll. Shouldn't that turn the scroll into the kunai? I mean, if a Shinigami-enforced seal developed by the greatest of all seal masters would turn a boy into a demon, then shouldn't a cheap store-bought seal scroll become the kunai when I sealed it? Right, counselors?" Then, cursing himself for not carrying his camera, Naruto did a 180-degree turn and began to make his way to his seat. The faces of the council were precious. Following a brief period of laughter, Hiruzen turned to address the council once more. "I think that we should conclude our meeting here. Any objections?" he asked, but they were still terrified for various reasons. Then this meeting is adjourned. Later on in the day, Hiruzen and his surrogate grandson were having a good evening as his clones took care of the paperwork that was no longer so dreaded. He smoked his pipe. Naruto was giggling a little because the man heeded his advice regarding the clones. "Now," the guy said, "would you mind telling me what you have in mind for the academy?" Naruto laughed. "Told you. I am going to shovel the will of fire into our future shinobi or die trying, and that's a promise." "But how?" smiled Hiruzen. The blonde replied, "With a little help from you, of course." "My help?" the boy replied. "Yes." Naruto gave a serious response. "I need you to make me an academy instructor?" The Hokage questioned, referring to both his regular shinobi tasks and his Anbu responsibilities. "But will you be able to manage it together with your other assignments? There will always be a body clone on standby to fill in for me when I will be indisposed. They may have only 10% of my power, but that is more than enough to handle a standard Chunin. I don't think that academy students will be any trouble for it, and I will take over from time to time." "He may be a Chunin and you a genin, but this is not wartime, so be it." Hiruzen nodded and wrote on the permission slip, "Give this to Iruka Yumino when you go to the academy. He will be your assistant while you are there." "Thank you, GG." Naruto grinned and took the document with him before he bounded out of the office. "You damn idiot," he said softly, glaring at the Yondaime's portrait after he had chuckled a little. "Why didn't you let me take your place? You would have been so damn proud of him. Her as well, so stubborn that you make mules seem like obedient children. That's what you both were," he accused. The picture, thinking for a moment before shrugging and pulling out his porn before he could finish, he shuddered at the thought. "I should have Jiraiya return to the village again. Maybe this time Naruto will." Beneath Konoha, the female participant in the secret meeting, remarked, "The Jinchuriki are becoming more and more insolent." Her former teammate and fellow elder confirmed, "Yes, it is getting out of control. We should do something about this. If we still want to have some influence in the council." Hiruzen trusts it more than he does us, and that is something that should not be for a weapon. "Do you have any suggestions, Danzo?" Since he had left the council chamber, the mummy had been silently thinking. They stood in awe as he said, "Homura, Kaharu, while I agree with your opinions, you are to leave young Uzumaki alone." He spoke quietly but authoritatively. Kaharu started to say, but Danzo lifted his only exposed arm. "And let's not forget Homura. The Jinchuriki is smarter and more powerful than his age dictates. We would do best not to antagonize him. For now I will keep a closer eye on him, but you are not to stand in his way. Am I clear?" he said, and the others lowered their shoulders in sorrow as they considered the second Hokage. "I understand your positions, but so far, the kid has proven more of an asset than a threat. What he said about Sensei and the others is true." Both of them gave a nod. "Actually, I'm also interested in his plans for the next generation. Uzumaki has shown thus far that he loves this village dearly and will fight to the end to protect it. Don't get me wrong. I will fight for this village until the day I die, but it will come to an end when we pass away if he genuinely loves this village. I will give him the freedom to choose someone else to live in the shadows where the root lives, but if the chance arises, we won't think twice about striking. They both confirmed once more alongside Naruto. Still wearing his coat and vest, our favorite blonde Senkaipo stood just outside Iruka's classroom, which seems pointless given that it's in the same building as the Hokage office, but it's still cool. He took a moment to assess the students' performance and concluded that it was mediocre. With only a handful of them worth more than words, he shrugged and knocked on the door before going inside. The girls had hearts in their eyes, and the male students gasped at how awesome he looked. As he scanned the classroom, he came across an unexpected person. Konohamaru Sarutobi, the elderly man's grandson, who appeared equally astounded. "Hey boss!" the child shouted. "Konohamaru, hello!" With a smile that made many girls faint, Naruto replied, recalling the day he first saw the squirt. Flashback: after taking his registration photo, our hero was in his office talking to the Sandang when Maru came in with a shuriken. Aiming for the cage and screaming about defeating him, he took 3 steps, tripped on his overly long scarf, and was about to fall on his face when Naruto suddenly appeared and caught him. "Are you alright, Squirt?" the blonde inquired. Maru gave him a questioning glance before turning hostile, saying, "Hey, why are you such a big deal?" "What?" Naruto replied. "Come clean. To act like a hero, you tripped me." Maru let out a scream. "Why would I act in that way?" Naruto, who was growing a bit agitated, inquired. At that moment, a man wearing round sunglasses in the Mobius style came in and said, "Hey you, honorable grandson of the Hokage, unhand him." The man let out a scream. When the man called Maru that, Naruto saw that his expressions appeared to darken. "Yes. That's your motivation, hero. All you want is a good relationship with my grandfather." The blonde gave him a startled look before bursting into a soft giggle. "What's so amusing?" Assuming that Naruto was mocking him, Maru asked. "Your greatest lie is that I had to get it good with GG, which makes it amusing," before putting Maru on his own feet, Naruto responded, laughing so hard that tears filled his eyes. "For your information, I have such a relation with him that I am practically one blood test away from being your big brother, Squirt." The child snarled, brushing himself off, "Stop calling me Squirt." "No, because you are that." Naruto grinned. "Simply put, you are a gaki, a squirt for selfish reasons. You rush in here brandishing a shuriken and point it at your devoted grandfather. I didn't fail to notice your flinching reaction when the 4 eyes here referred to you as honorable grandson. I assume you detest that as well as the fact that you are unable to overcome Gigi's shadow." Maru's eyes went wide with shock. The blonde's face became serious as Naruto continued, grinning. "And now you want his job so that others can see you for that and not for your grandfather's job, a squirt's reasons. And when things go sour, you blame somebody else for your own incompetence, just like a brat," Naruto said. "What would you actually fight for, if I may ask?" "You will always be a gaki in my eyes, not the honorable gaki, but self-centered scum, if it's for recognition." The genin explained. "Find the true answer to that question deep within your heart and earn my respect." He then released the paralysis seal that had kept Ebisu motionless and silent before he started to head for the door, but he stopped in the middle. "Oh, and I almost forgot. Only cowards and idiots act like heroes," Naruto said, glancing over his shoulder, before idly tossing Maru's shuriken, which he had secretly taken from his hand, in front of his feet. "But only true heroes act. For what purpose? That's the question you need to answer. Goodbye, Squirt." Before teleporting out of the room without leaving a visual impression, he waved. This guy's different, Maru thought, but Ebisu was too shaken to respond. Naruto had just returned from the hospital where Mamoru-sensei had given him his medical license, first-class certificate, so he was heading towards his apartment. Later that same day he saw someone attempting to conceal themselves behind a picture of the same building, but one that was perpendicular to the design, as he was passing a wooden fence. "You're holding the curtain wrong, Squirt, come out," he said. Maru emerged from his hiding spot and gave his head a sheepish rub. "Eehee, sorry about that, boss." "Boss?" the blonde asked him inquisitively. "Yeah, I thought about what you said but I just couldn't get a decent answer, so I thought that maybe following you I would get it eventually. So you are my Aniki, boss, big brother, now," Maru responded. "Also, can you teach me anything useful? Ebisu keeps making me read stuff and do physical training, but he barely taught me how to use chakra and chakra control, but he refuses to teach me any jutsu," the child murmured. Then Naruto crossed his hands and asked, "Have you ever thought that maybe they are truly useful, Squirt?" "What do you mean, boss?" Konohamaru asked, perplexed. Sighed. "Look, The basics are the most important thing to a shinobi. Sure, you can have cool jutsu that make things go boom, but to truly master them you have to know the basics. I for one only know about 10 or so techniques, but because of my mastery over them, well, let's just put it this way, if GG and I were to fight each other seriously, I'm not sure which of us would survive. Maru's eyes widened to the size of plates. Really? Inquired the boy. Grinning, the blonde approached him. He placed a hand on his shoulder and led him to the Team 7 training area. The experience caused the poor kid to throw up his lunch. What was that? A startled and a little nauseous Maru exclaimed. That squirt was the Hiraishin no Jutsu, the jutsu that made the 4th famous in the war. The boy's eyes were now full of stars. He leapt to his feet and exclaimed, teach me, teach me, teach me, instead. With a sly smile, Naruto pulled out a scroll and said, sure. He unfolded it over Maru and opened its contents. Poor Maru was buried beneath a stack of books that were roughly as tall as Naruto. The boy gasped as he dug himself out of the pile and gave our hero a furious look, but Naruto stepped in before he could yell. Those books are all about the basics of Fuinjutsu, chakra control, and my notes about Jikuukan ninjutsu. Read them all and then come find me and I'll give you the advanced portion, which is 3 times more. Also, you have to practice what those books say. After that I will show you how to perform this technique. Maru almost yelled, what? Why can't you just show me how to do the technique without them? Basics, replied Naruto with a serious expression. If you don't know what is written in those books and you try to perform this technique without them, the best case would be that your head would end up at your intended destination and your ass would appear on Gigi's desk at the same time. That was all it took to turn the boy white. Understand now, squirt? The more powerful the jutsu, the more complicated it usually is, and the more risk it has to the user, or the more work is needed to use it. Usually both. Take one of the village's most powerful shinobi, Kakashi Hatake, my sensei. He created an A-class Raiden jab jutsu, but if you use it recklessly you can lose your arm, or your life, since it's very draining. Not only that, but it also requires a lot of speed and good perception, so hence this is also the basics area, Naruto clarified. Maru was deep in thought. Then did you practice them too, boss? I have nearly 1,000 years of practice, squirt. Besides that, even walking is practice for me. 1,000 years? A doubtful Konohamaru cried. Kage Bunshin no Jutsu, started out Naruto. It's a very dangerous kinjutsu that can create a physical clone that can train in mental tasks like chakra control and calligraphy in your place. So if you create a clone and practice with it, you have twice the practice time. The clone, which Naruto created without a seal, continued, it is dangerous because you need to have enough chakra to power the clone in your body or you could die. It's a Chunin level jutsu. The clone then poofed out of existence. Naruto concluded, I can make 1,000 of them and still train all day. Whoa! Maru was able to exclaim. Then Naruto grinned and resealed the books. Tree climbing with no hands. But I won't be stingy, I'll actually teach you something useful and relatively safe, he said. No hands? How? Inquired Maru. Naruto inquired, how do most shinobi do cool things? The boy asked as if he had a revelation. Chakra? Naruto went on, exactly, now watch this. Before directing some Ranpu chakra toward his feet, making it glow bright blue to make it visible, and then combining it with regular chakra. Then he strolled up the tree. Now if you focus too little chakra you will slip off the tree. Naruto started to skid lightly on the bark after reducing the flow by a tiny amount, then corrected it once more. He was thrown off the tree after saying, too much and you will blast off the tree, before flipping and landing like a cat. Turning to Maru he continued, you have to find the right balance to keep yourself on. It's harder than it looks, so don't underestimate it. Also, most sensei would tell you to run up the tree and mark your top position. I say that is too costly and dangerous. Start out slow at first. Only try to stick one foot to the tree, and after you think that it's good, disconnect your foot and try it with the other. After that, try to gently walk on it. Don't try to see how high you go, but how long you can stay stuck to it and how much you have to focus. If you can do it while, say, throwing a ball in the air and trying to catch it, then you have mastered it. This exercise, besides its obvious usefulness, can also make your chakra pools grow and make you be able to do cooler jutsu easier. Wow! Exclaimed Maru, who was paying attention to what his boss had said, but in the following instant, Naruto teleported ahead of him and met his eyes. With a face that was a mix of Anko and Ibiki and a very small amount of ki, Naruto gave the order. However, don't burn yourself out, as that can be seriously dangerous. If you feel yourself out of breath, then take a break. Do I make myself clear, squirt? Maru nodded angrily. Terrified, the blonde shouted, good. Well, what are you waiting for? An invitation? Get a move on. And the boy walked to the closest tree. After 3 hours, with numerous mistakes and occasional guidance, Maru was able to walk on the tree with minimal difficulty. Hey squirt, Catch, said Naruto as he picked up a fruit from a nearby tree. Without slipping or noticing that he was 15 feet off the ground, he exclaimed, "Hey boss, I did it," and descended the tree, feeling a little worn out but still joyful. Naruto grinned and said, "Great job, Squirt." The child grinned back at him. "What the?" The man frowned, and Ebisu shunshined in the photo. "What are you doing, honorable grandson? Associating with such a jerk like him would only hurt you," he screamed. Maru frowned, but he was too exhausted to respond when Naruto saw this. He moved to the side. "Back off, Four Eyes. The Squirt obviously doesn't feel comfortable with you, so please leave," asked Naruto. "The nerve. You obviously don't know your place, trash. I am a Tokubetsu Junin and you are a genin and will respect me," Ebisu said. "You're right, I am trash." Naruto closed his eyes and replied softly, causing the man to smirk and Maru to look surprised. "But those who don't care about their comrades are far worse than trash. If you want to get the Squirt you'll have to go through me," confidently said Naruto. "Boss." Maru gazed admiringly at his role model before stepping in front of Naruto and closing his eyes. Maru told him, "That's okay. Boss, you don't have to do this for me because I will handle him myself," and began to charge at Ebisu. The child was able to get close to the man for a few seconds because the man was momentarily stunned and confused, but at the last second, his shinobi instincts took over, and he leapt into a tree to avoid the boy's fist. "Why do you do this, honorable grandson? I told you that this trash is not worth the effort too." "Shut up," Maru yelled, startling the man once more. "Boss, I have the answer. Those who don't care about others are far worse than trash, right? Then I will protect everyone I care about and who they care for as well. No matter how hard it will be or how long it will take, I will become strong enough to do so, that I swear," the boy said, turning to face Naruto. Ebisu, who had been feeling conflicted after hearing the boy's words, charged at him once more when he saw Maru approaching the tree's base. He jolted out of his reverie after a minute of grinning. He saw the boy running up the tree with the same momentum, and his mouth dropped open. He was taken aback when Maru got to his level and gave him a straight blow to the jaw, causing them to both fall from the tree. The boy closed his eyes, anticipating the agony of the fall, but he was abruptly brought back to reality by the sensation of stopping. Naruto was hanging upside down on the same branch where Ebisu had been sitting just a moment earlier, holding him with one arm. The man dropped to the floor. Nevertheless, the man was not very tall, and he soon sat down to tend to his sore face. "I'm happy to see that Konohamaru's physical training is paying off. That kid is a powerful fighter," the man sarcastically thought. "I hate being an elite teacher sometimes." Naruto and Konohamaru landed on the ground with ease a moment later. After giving them a quick glance, Ebisu grinned and stood up straight. Naruto grinned and nodded in return when he nodded. Then he turned around and started to leave. Maru screamed, "Yeah," and never come back, but was quickly touched on the shoulder by his boss. Silently, Naruto said, "Go with him." The boy gave him a curious look, but he realized what Naruto was looking at after recalling the recent, high adrenaline events. With a foxy smile, Maru replied, "Okay, thanks for everything, Ni-chan. You are no longer my Aniki. From now on we are rivals. Wait for me. I will definitely get Gigi's hat from you." "Well, you will have to prove that you are strong enough for it, since that hat carries the weight of the country's people, and that means that you will have to kick my ass," replied Naruto. "Count on it, then I'll be waiting, Konohamaru." Maru turned around and yelled, "Ebisu-sensei, wait for me," as the two fists bumped. An elderly Hokage was using his crystal ball to closely observe the events in his office. He grinned when he saw and heard, "I believe," the conclusion. Then he settled back in his chair and took a few drags from his pipe. The man laughed and returned to his work, but not before grinning at Minato's portrait. "Maybe sooner than you think, Squirt." End of flashback. Naruto turned to face Iruka, who was approaching, and smirked at the memory before dismissing it. "Naruto? What are you doing here? Class is still in session." "Official business, Iruka-sensei. This is from GG." The boy handed the man the scroll from the Hokage, grinning broadly. Iruka scowled as she read it with sincere concern. The man said, "Are you sure you want this? It's harder than it looks. We'll never know if it's for the boy or his job." "Don't worry, sensei. I already had to deal with a little sister and a little brother figure, so I think I can handle it. Don't worry. This is temporary but necessary so to start a newer standard." "Okay, if you say so." The man sighed and turned to face the class. "Class," he said, but they weren't listening because they were too busy talking about Naruto. Iruka's forehead got a tick mark. He yelled, "Class," more firmly, but to no avail. He was getting angry now. Naruto placed a hand in front of him just as he was ready to use his big head from Hell Jutsu. As if they had no worries in the world, The blonde stepped forward and grinned while observing the group chatting. Before anyone could blink, he unleashed 1% of his powerful ki. They all froze in place, their words still lingering in their mouths, and the outcome was more than anticipated. All of them, including Konohamaru, stared at Naruto in fear and silence as he turned off his ki. "Why didn't I think of that?" Iruka asked, gazing at the boy with astonishment and a hint of jealousy. He pondered. Naruto laughed. "Now that I have your undivided attention, I want to present myself. I am Naruto Uzumaki. You can call me Uzumaki-sensei, Naruto-sensei, Sensei, Naruto, or however you wish. I don't care for the rest of the year, and maybe more. I will be your sensei, and Iruka Amino-sensei will be my assistant," he said with a grin on his face. After a few more seconds of silence, one girl stammered, What was that?" Nodded. "That was ki, also known as killer intent, and it is what you will feel every time I catch you not paying attention, sleeping, skipping school, chasing boys or girls during academy time, or disobeying my orders," he responded. A collective was heard from them, but the blonde heard a troublesome back there. He commanded, "Oh, what's this? We have a Nara in the premise. Stand up," and a little boy wearing knee-length black pants, a gray t-shirt with visible mesh underneath, and shoulder-length untidy hair reluctantly stood up. "What's your name, Squirt?" He replied languidly, "Troublesome, Shikamaru Nara. Can I sit down now?" Naruto grinned naively. The next instant, Shikamaru was lifted off his feet and drawn towards Naruto, who was producing the construction out of his forearm, by a bright orange rope-like structure that had wrapped itself around him. The rope placed the Nara directly in front of Naruto, who appeared to be beaming with joy despite everyone being able to sense the murderous aura behind him. Ryu nearly urinated in that moment. Naruto said, kindly, "Era. What was that?" Now standing at eye level with the taller Naruto, the still suspended boy responded, "I said Shikamaru Nara, and if I can sit down." "Oh my. This attitude and looks. How close are you related with Shikamaru, Squirt?" asked the brunette. "He's my first cousin," he replied, but the rope began to tighten and Naruto's arm flinched. "Era? I didn't quite catch that," Naruto grinned in response to the boy's obviously awkward posture. "I said," Naruto screamed, "I heard what you said, maggot," and made the boy retract his statement. "When you address me you add sensei and you do it like you mean it." Ryu attempted to defend himself by saying, but you said that we can call you however we want." Naruto scowled and muttered, "You fail? Are you really related to Shikamaru?" The boy questioned, "What?" But the rope tightened once more. "I mean, what do you mean, sensei?" He clarified, and the rope relaxed enough to feel comfortable once more. "I meant to call me however you wish in your own time, brat. Whenever we are in here I am Naruto sensei or sensei to you, all of you, and you will respect rank, whether through fear or genuine understanding. Do I make myself clear?" Naruto began to yell at him and the entire class before refocusing on Ryu. "Also, while I'm here sleeping or giving anything else, but your all is forbidden if you are not knocked unconscious, and if you use that condescending tone with me I will give you a reason to sleep by making you run 100 laps around the school ground, and trust me you will run." Naruto made a threat. Without using the sensei and maintaining his tone, the Nara scowled and replied, "You can't be serious, that's cruel and uncalled for." He wasn't conceited in the slightest, but no one, that is, no one except his mother and aunt, threatened his sleep schedule. With a sly smile, Naruto pulled back his rope, causing him to fall hilariously onto his butt. After 3 seconds of a staring contest between the Nara and the blonde, Naruto closed his eyes and let out a sigh. Ryu grinned, believing he had won, but then Naruto collected some chakra in his hand and slammed it on the ground, causing a very specific seal to appear. A moment later, a blue-eyed white cobra the size of a shoelace appeared, looked around, saw Naruto, and, quicker than a bullet, climbed onto the blonde's shoulder and cuddled up to the boy's cheek. "This class is Mickey, my friend, and my Nei-san's summon. She likes rodents, scarring enemies, and apparently me and my Nei-san, she hates anybody who messes with us. She is a cobra-type summon and is highly venomous. Although she can deliver non-venomous bites, I have to tell you that if she envenomed someone they would beg for a painful death." The class became drab. The little snake imitated a bow, which some of the more sadistic students in the class found adorable. Naruto grinned and went on, "She also loves a good chase and can follow orders to the letter." Ryu arched an eyebrow and started to say, "You said it's your Nei-san's summon," but was stopped in his tracks by his sensei's intense gaze. She nodded, shot back Naruto. Right. Anyway, how can you summon her?" Ryu inquired. She responded by smiling. Naruto scratched the small snake beneath her muzzle and said, "Oh, That's thanks to a modified reverse summoning seal that is placed inside her hood. Apparently she gets very cranky if I don't play with her often. Ryu frowned and said, okay, why did you summon her? Then. The blonde sensei forgot to add the honorific or proper title, and his eyebrows twitched. Furthermore, his tone was still unhelpful. Naruto exclaimed, almost shouting, a very good question, Squirt. The blonde concluded with a dark chuckle, she will make sure that I keep my promise of you running those laps, starting right now. When Hanabi requested training, he used the same face he used on her to tell the boy, oh, and don't think about using your family's technique on her or I will personally turn you into a practice dummy for T&I techniques, got it, Squirt? The boy thought, hey, I'll just give that spaghetti string the slip and then sleep off the rest of the day, as he perspired and nodded angrily. Mickey-chan, would you be a dear and help me with making him run 100 laps around the academy grounds? Naruto appeared to read this and grinned homicidally. The snake gave her friend a perplexed look, then turned to face Ryu, sharing the blonde's smile as much as a snake did, leaping into the air and instantly growing into the size of a large anaconda, opening her hood while hissing and still smiling at her. Pray, Ryu almost shit his pants. Am I able to use lethal force? To the surprise of everyone but Naruto, the snake hissed the words. No venom, permanent or severe injuries, but you can turn his ass into a sprinkler if he either slows down or tries to give you the slip. The brunette replied without hesitation. After curling the tip of her tail, Mickey quickly whipped it while making a snapping sound with her fingers, SSSSSSSHUKs, before shrugging and exposing a set of sharp, needle-like fangs that were 3 inches long and gleaming in the room's neon lighting. Naruto scowled as he noticed Shikamaru trying to creep covertly toward the exit during this time. Mickey, hunt, he said, and a very joyful snake followed the boy as he ran out the door. Did everyone learn from today's lesson? Naruto asked, chuckling darkly once more before turning to face the rest of the class, who were nearly terrified by the display. Yes, sensei, was their chorus response, which was almost robotic. Good, welcome to hell, Squirts, I'll be your devil for the year, the blonde said with a kind smile. He uttered those words as he burst into cunning laughter. We're screwed. The class exclaimed. The boy was walking along the street. He could multiply and multitask, so it wasn't a huge deal for him to manage being an ANBU, a genin on a team, a counselor, a sensei, a big brother, a godfather, and a clan head. Even though he had to be present for his Anbu duties, they were becoming less and less demanding because everything was completed on time. Since genin don't get challenging or hazardous missions very often, he gave the remaining ones to either a shadow clone or a body shadow clone. Since the majority of their missions were D rank or basic C ranks, which were meant to foster teamwork and which they had in abundance, his teammates were appreciative of the fact that he had even created clones for them and given them henge for Hinata. They spent the extra time training or enjoying the more significant activities, such as gardening, and for Sasuke, they played and trained with his mother and sister. Squad 7, also known as the Special Assault Team or SAT, had been a part of the Anbu for a month and a half. They were initially viewed with some animosity because they were admitted on the Hokage's and the reinstated former Captain Dog's, Kakashi, recommendation, but no one paid any attention to what they had done to earn this distinction. They were even treated with a certain amount of suspicion because, among other things, they were under an agreement to never reveal their identities to anyone, not even the Anbu commander-in-chief. Moreover, their size indicated that they were young people, perhaps as young as 12 or 13, and the renowned criminal Itachi was the last of that kind to join their ranks. However, because Naruto wore a mask, he was the one who was accused of being blunt. Rewind. When he opened the storage room of unused masks, Kakashi gave them instructions, saying, "Okay team, time to pick your masks. They will represent you, so choose wisely. As you probably know, mine is a dog, and so from now on, whenever you see me with it, you will refer to me as Dog Taicho or simply Taicho, Captain." Neither Sasuke nor Hinata wasted any time selecting their masks before donning it. Sasuke painted some fire symbols on one that resembled a hawk. "Welcome to the Anbu, Agent Hawk," Dog said, extending his congratulations to Hawk, the new hire. "Hi, Taicho," declared Hawk after some searching. Hinata discovered a lion-like mask and painted 2 blue whisker marks on it before donning it. Dog said, "Welcome to the Anbu, Agent Lion," once more. "Hi, Dog Taicho." On the other hand, Naruto found it a little challenging to find his mask. He discovered what he was looking for after searching through the old storage containers before donning it. He added his signature marks, just like his teammates. The dog's sweat dropped. "Are you sure that's the mask you want? I mean, that creature is not exactly well taken to?" "Exactly. It will bring fear to those who know it and will become known to those who don't. Besides, I like it, the young man shouted. After saying, "Very well then, welcome to the Anbu Agent Fox," to his final squad members, the captain concluded. Hi. Convincing them that they weren't Team 7 was surprisingly simple. Despite his considerable fame, Kakashi, also known as Dog, convinced them that he was well known for his chronic tardiness and overall laziness and impassibility, and that he could easily trick his Genin team into giving him time to train and lead his Anbu team while typically leaving a Raiden clone to soothe them. His reputation was, predictably, worse than that, so it was easy to believe his story's Bunshin, Naruto's hanged cage, also provided assistance. Flashback termination. Following the Sandame's orders, they initially only received B ranks, but after the first week, things began to change. One would assume that everything in their lives happens at precisely the right moment, such as when a kami shows interest in them, or if their life were a story, the author would give them more authority and circumstances than they would otherwise have. Mahuhahaha. At the end of their week, one such incident took place. Another flashback to rehone their skills. The SAT squad, also known as Team Yurei, Ghost, was making their way to the ANBU's underground training area. When they finished their 11th mission for the elite group on the 5th day, they were given their nickname. It wasn't because no one could figure out how they managed to finish so many missions in such a short period of time. No, it actually stemmed from the fact that nobody, not even the Commander-in-Chief, CIC, could figure out how they leave or return. They simply vanish around a corner and then reappear in record time, looking immaculate and having a flawless report right outside the door, even though the CIC instructed the entryway guards to use the internal communication system to alert him when they left and returned. He never received a report. Unbeknownst to him, Naruto had installed a network of Hiraishin and sensor seals inside the barracks. These seals were covered in invisible ink and, just for safety, were hidden from both the Byakugan and the Sharingan. Hinata and Sasuke double-checked this in order to ensure that Naruto always knew which seals were best for stealthy entry as directed by the prankster inside of him. The same prankster that infected his teammates and sensei. Sensor seals were placed to detect any potential people standing nearby. When he saw the poor CIC, Kakashi or Inu Taicho would often turn blue under his masks from holding his breath to avoid laughing at his face. They were also able to return in record time thanks to Naruto's Hiraishin. Additionally, as the Blonde Seal network expanded with each outing, they were able to use that seal as a proxy to continue walking to their destination. Their travel time was essentially reduced by 55 to 80%. As a result, they were given the name Ghosts, which actually fit them quite well, because of that and the fact that no one other than the Hokage knew who they were. As I was saying that there weren't enough lower-ranking missions, because they plowed through them. They were going to the training ground. They were almost there when they encountered the CIC conversing with an ANBU wearing a frog mask. He threw the paperclip he was holding into the wall and exclaimed, "Damn it, what do we do now? My rescue squad is gone on another mission and I have no time to form a new one. Fuck." Kakashi decided to place a hand on his shoulder at that precise moment. He didn't care about some brats, but he did know Kakashi, and by all accounts, the Cyclops should be the one in his place in terms of skill and experience. The man turned heel, ready to rip the person who had bothered him a new one when he stopped seeing Team Ghost. Kakashi inquired with genuine concern, "What's up?" "There's been a situation. Parrot and his assault team have been captured by a group of missing nin. The captors currently have about 20 Chunin, 5 Junin and about 60 bandits. They are led by Hiromi Gorachu, also known as Yamahasai no Hiromi, Mountain Crusher Hiromi, and a rank borderline S-rank missing nin from Iwa. He is said to have been on a demolition squad with their S-rank missing nin Deidra. He has the explosion release Keke Genke and uses it with his giant battle hammer he calls Hiasatsu, one-hit kill." The CIC continued to frown. He then turned his attention to Kakashi and his team, who were standing in perfect synchronization and had perfect control over their breath. He would have forgotten they were there if they hadn't been in front of his face. "Ghost Squad. The CIC paused for a moment. "Inu. I know this is rather unorthodox, but there is nobody else I can turn to, so I am ordering you and SAT to rescue them." Although Kakashi was somewhat taken aback, it wasn't as though he hadn't anticipated it. "With all due respect, Commander, we would love to, but the Hokage specifically forbidden us from any such dangerous assignments," replied Kakashi. Tiger yelled, "Damn it, Kakashi. Just get my men back, and I'll take care of the Hokage. Now go." But they had already left after receiving the information from his assistant. Within an hour, they were positioned at the forest's edge, with a view of the wooden fortress of the missing nin. From his position, the captain surveyed the visible portion of the base. "All right, team. We do this nice and quiet. Kakashi whispered. Keep in the shadows till we get the captives to safety, after that is fire at will if the situation calls for it. Then he triggered the seal that linked him to his team telepathically following the mask selection. Naruto offered it to Kakashi, who accepted it right away because he believed it would improve the dynamic of the team. It's showtime. Hinata you, he mentally transmitted. There are 57 individuals with average chakra levels dispersed throughout the base, 13 Chunin level individuals in the third tent from the gate, 3 Junin and Tokubetsu Junin individuals sleeping in the center tent, and they also seem intoxicated based on their fluctuating chakras. A heavily armed man, who may be a bandit leader, is receiving orders from the other 2 Junin. Gorachu is nowhere to be seen, Hinata replied. Very good, Kakashi replied, a little taken aback by her response time. You're Naruto. After the watch towers were neutralized, clones took their place for aesthetic reasons and moved to the Chunin tent, the blonde answered. All right, nice job. Kakashi responded in a stunned tone. Sasuke, do I have anything to say? Gate guards neutralized under heavy genjutsu, Sasuke thought. Laughing, we won't even be noticed by them. Junin was neutralized after proceeding to neutralize him while sober. The genjutsu will put them to sleep for 12 hours. Those brats, Kakashi thought in jest. We heard that. All 3 of them responded in the same way. Sweating profusely, Kakashi kicked himself into gear and secured various positions. The genin arrived safely at the opposite side of the camp, where the Anbu team was being held captive. When a greenish fissure formed in the ground between them and their target, they removed the guards and proceeded to open the gates before detonating a large amount of dirt. Leaping back, they positioned themselves to face the explosion's origin. A mountain of a man named Yamahasaki no Hiromi stood 50 feet away from them, smirking maniacally while shouldering Hyuuga. With the exception of the brown sleeveless jacket that exposed his steel-like body, he was wearing loose black pants and shinobi navy blue sandals. Hiromi's eye was unharmed, but he had a long, untidy beard and a vertical scar on his Sharingan eye that resembled Kakashi's. The so-called drunk shinobi, 7 Chunin, and a gang of bandits brandishing various weapons were behind him as their only chance of escaping alive in secret was lost. The prisoners watched in horror and despair. In a semi-crazed state, he yelled, So, Hiromi started, you thought that you could sneak inside my place and steal my toys? Not going to happen. Split up and take them. I don't need them alive, Hiromi ordered, and they promptly did as he said. 3 Chunin, a Junin, and 2/5 of the bandits charged at Hinata, while 2 more fifths and another Junin pursued Sasuke to face Naruto. The others banded together. Kakashi, who had fallen slightly behind, went into hiding in anticipation of the ideal opportunity to defeat Hiromi or to provide his team with last-minute assistance if necessary. But in this case, they didn't really need it. They all felt as light as feathers after dropping their individual weights. They each turned on their eye techniques and positioned themselves. The first person to fall an enemy was Hinata, who swiftly gained momentum and left a sea of unconscious or dead bodies in her wake. Her Byakugan's blind spot was relatively small, making it nearly impossible to sneak up behind her. It could conceal a kunai or an arrow, but it couldn't conceal the foolish idiots who charged at her. The bandits posed no threat at all, and her swiftness easily defeated the bothersome Chunin who attempted various tactics to halt and murder her. However, the Junin proved deserving of his position. The Kunoichi smiled as he deflected a Juken strike, saying, Impressive, but don't think that you can kill me, brat. I have to tell you that I have a B rank in the bingo book and a bounty of 5 million for killing a couple of brats just like you. She maintained the tough guy persona, but in reality, the Gaki was testing her limits because every time she attempted a jutsu move, Hinata would appear in front of her, forcing her to stop using hand seals and instead defend herself with her arms. B rank? Hinata asked as she hurled a barrage of blows at the Kunoichi. Well, for my first C rank, she said, sweeping at her legs and knocking her off balance. And his apprentice that has an ice-based Keke Genkai. She then rotated and threw a palm strike that the Kunoichi barely avoided, but Hinata struck a tree, splitting it in half down the middle. Who was a lot faster than you were, and she smirked before spiking her chakra and vanishing from the Kunoichi's view. The woman looked around frantically before hearing, Hake Hasangeki. 8 trigrams. Mountain Crusher. Behind her a point-blank vacuum palm then blasted her off her feet, sending her flying into a rock where she was rendered unconscious. Hinata turned to face her teammates after saying a brief prayer to her fallen foes. Sasuke was using his speed to stay well out of reach while hurling lightning and fire jutsu one after the other. When he yelled, Raiden, Raineko, lightning release, lightning cat, a cat formed entirely of lightning descended from his back and scratched a handful of bandits, chopping them into tiny fragments. He yelled, Kaden, Gukaku, once more and set more bandits on fire. This continued until the Chunin shinobi and he were alone. The man yelled in genuine admiration, "How the fuck did you have enough chakra for this brat?" With a sly smile, Sasuke said, "I had 2 slave-driving teachers. This doesn't even count as morning workout." With a growl, the Chunin lunged towards Sasuke. They appeared to be evenly matched as they were exchanging blows. But Sasuke broke off and hit the man with a Goryuka. The man saw the enormous fire-shaped draconic head rush in his direction, but it was too late to avoid it, and he was instantly consumed by flames. A spike of earth pierced Sasuke in the middle of his chest, causing him to go wide-eyed as he stood there appreciating his creation. The Chunin emerged from the earth. The man roared with laughter and boasted, "Fool! I went underground when I saw your fancy candlelight coming towards me and then used a simple C-rank jutsu to kill you." But then he felt a sharp pain in his neck and began to gurgle blood. The next scene showed him standing in the same spot where he had begun speaking to the hawk-masked boy, with no evidence of their fight in sight. The boy was now standing right in front of him with a bloody kunai, and he saw the blood-red Sharingan eyes before death seized him and he collapsed on the ground. Sharingan Genjutsu. Mugetsu. Moonless sky. That was the only change then, as it had become customary between them. Sasuke offered the same prayer that Hinata did. It was not so much a religious ceremony as a hope that they would find peace and atonement in the next life. Then he turned to face his team, as Hinata had done. The bandits were sneering and grinning at Naruto, who was simply standing in the center of the crowd. Mayan, now red in the face, was in his grasp. "Look, he's frozen stiff." One bandit chuckled. Another said, "Can you smell that? I think he shit his pants." As he focused and activated Kagami-iki, Naruto exhaled and gradually disappeared from view. The captives watching the battle with interest would never be able to forget the next moment. Once surrounding the boy, the men fell together as one. They all lay on the cold ground, either dead or unconscious, and not even the Chunin who followed him managed to get away. As the boy emerged at the edge of the mass of bodies brandishing a bloody sword, one of the prisoners whispered, "Shinigami." Above him, a vision of a dark, formless figure with glowing red slit eyes appeared. Chunin, barely conscious, heard the whisper and instantly fainted. In the meantime, Hiromi was clenching his teeth so tightly that most people would be worried about them breaking. His assistants were weak, he believed, but not so weak that they would be overtaken by a group of brats. With a thunderous sound that caught the genin's attention, he lifted Hyuuga and slammed it into the ground. Sasuke and Hinata lunged to confront him, but Naruto stopped them. Calmly, Naruto approached the missing nin and declared, "He's mine." Hiromi scowled while glaring at Naruto, who gave him a glare in return. The men eyed each other for a few seconds before breaking the ice with a simple, "Die," and then vanishing in a spectacular show of speed. A moment later, he emerged behind Naruto, swinging wildly at the boy who used Mayan to parry without even shifting positions. Hiromi scowled and then smiled homicidally. This startled Naruto until Hyuuga green glowed and exploded in a directed blast that knocked the blonde off his feet. Without giving him a chance to recover, Hiromi kicked the ground, causing a lump of earth to jump, then struck it with his battle hammer and used explosive chakra to charge the shards. Bombs were hurled at the poor blonde, who had to do everything in his power to stay safe. Hiromi eventually halted and went to look around. After doing this 7 times, he discovered a blonde unconscious on the ground. Bruised and battered, he grinned until a sword blade came out of his chest. The Naruto on the ground turned to smoke, while the one behind him was severely damaged. As the Hiromi he killed transformed into soft mud, Naruto grinned and exclaimed, "Huff! Huff got you, mud clone." The blonde, however, realized it was too late because, as he turned, he was confronted by Hyuuga, who blasted his head off his shoulders in a shower of blood and brain. A panting Hiromi stood in front of him, his headless body limply falling to the ground. He grinned and exclaimed, "Damn Gaki, I have to admit you were good, but not good enough." He then burst out laughing. The man was frozen in place when a voice from one of the trees asked, "Did you really have to kill my body shadow clone?" He looked in the direction of the voice but saw nothing until he cancelled Kagami-iki and a slowly returning Naruto with a sake bottle in his hand, lounging on the branch. "Those things are hard to make, you know. They don't grow on trees." "What?" the man said, regaining his voice at last. As he took another swig of the bottle before resealing it, the blonde said, "Oh come on. You didn't think that I was that weak, did you? I mean, a body cage bunshin can have at maximum 15% of my power, and that would be seriously pushing its integrity. And now I have to kill you, unless you surrender," he said. The man yelled, "Fuck you," as his anger swiftly overcame him. With a sigh, Naruto picked up the red Mayan and gave it a quick glance. Only when he was extremely angry did the sword glow crimson. His wrath and fury were fueled by the crimson Mayan, who directed them toward the blade. He was enraged at this man who had the audacity to kidnap his Anbu colleagues, and his training with the Hyuga allowed him to direct his rage toward his target without impairing his judgment. Naruto directed half of his chakra into Hiromi's extremities as he took another step, enhancing his already remarkable motor system and granting him lightning speed. Before the man realized what was happening, Naruto appeared in front of him and then split into another 6 after images. If you've watched Bleach, think Ichigo vs. Byakuya. The blonde man seemed to be standing motionless, despite the fact that he was still moving at a remarkable pace. Seikuken Ryu. Nanaju Shinkubara. Seikuken style. 70 blossoming buds. Naruto whispered as he sheathed the sword, which vanished as soon as he finished. Then, all of the images of the blonde slashed at him, the crimson slashes splitting into 10 other parallel slashes each and splitting the man into small cubes in a shower of blood. That was Crimson Mayon's last power. It multiplied his swordsmanship tenfold, sometimes with noticeable results. This time, the power behind his slices was 10 times greater than what his muscles could handle at the time, and they multiplied 10 times each. The drawback of this was that Naruto's anger quickly subsided and he began to breathe heavily after he saw the man dead, and that was the cost since his own energy was depleted. The power of his sword had to come from somewhere, and it manifested as 10 times the weariness. Naruto caught his breath, and he and the others tied up the other missing nins and left them to the authorities. Sealing the bodies of the killed ones, they then got ready to teleport the now unconscious rescued agents back to Konoha. But Kakashi couldn't stop thinking, I'm definitely getting chewed out for this later. After 3 days in the Anbu barracks, they had hardly had time to shower when the CIC's assistant arrived with a message telling them to report to the Hokage Tower as soon as possible. In the office of the cage, the Sandame shouted uncontrollably, "What in the blue hell were you thinking?" as Naruto's privacy seals prevented them from leaving. Before the man expressed a little regret for defying orders, the group was silent. "I explicitly forbid you from any sort of action, and here you are in my office bringing not 1 but 3 bodies from high-profile targets, one of which a recently promoted S-rank shinobi." The man was wildly waving the scrolls. Tora, the tiger, CIC, bowed and called attention to himself, saying, "Sir." He was about to sacrifice himself to make things right when Naruto placed a hand on his shoulder. "I apologize for my rude interruption, but it was I who ordered them to overlook your orders, and for that I accept full responsibility." "No," Naruto said. "Hokage-sama." The blonde started off emotionlessly, using a professional tone and speech pattern designed to conceal his identity. "Even if Tora Sotecho, Captain Commander, Head Captain, had not given the order, we would still have gone, so the blame does not fall entirely up to him. If that is true, then I will give you one chance to explain yourselves. If it does not come satisfactory, then I will be forced to strip you of your position. I will not have loose kanai on my private force," the Sandame said with conviction and a hint of pain in his voice, as Hiruzen scowled deeply and sighed deeply and inwardly. Just as the group was about to respond, Naruto's body gave a little start after absorbing the clone's memories. Then, before they could say anything, he moved forward to silence them and cocked his head in the direction of the CIC. At this, Hiruzen arched an eyebrow, but it wasn't for nothing that he was the Hokage. The man promptly complied with his order for Tora to leave the office. The old man then attempted to give Naruto instructions to continue, but the boy simply used his quickness to seize the cage, his group, and Hiruzen to his hospital office. This startled his passengers, but he simply gestured for them to follow once again. They followed the blonde wearing the Anbu through 2 hallways until they reached the area designated for the rescued group. A woman stood in the middle of the hallway, her eyes full of tears, but her smile was radiant as she gazed at the picture of a young girl, perhaps no older than 5, tightly hugging a man in a hospital gown who anyone with a basic understanding of the situation would assume was both the woman's husband and her father. Additionally, he was the unmasked Agent Frog, who was now known as Genshiro Mirashin. The scene was heartwarming and endearing as the girl joyfully released Genshiro and began a brief game with the man, who was both happy to be alive and see his family again. Before presenting them both to the Hokage, Naruto whispered, "This is why GG." The blonde started to break the group's silence. "I already know the pain of not having a father, so I will not allow others to suffer fates similar to mine if I can help it." He then unfastened his mask, unsealed his traditional tanto, and threw a light henge over his face. "If that's not good enough, then take them. I don't need them if that's the case. All of my respect for that old man is lost if he takes them." Biju Kitsune, our amiable neighborhood, thought. Hiruzen sighed as he grinned. "I have to show you something," and took out a brand new bingo book. "Okay, I got it. Keep them. I would feel like a louse if I took them from you after seeing that." Apparently one of the Chunin that your team killed was the son of a high-ranking official in Iwa, so look at the end pages. With Hinata and Sasuke peering over his shoulder, the blonde nodded and opened the book. When he eventually reached the page, he saw the forensic-style drawing of Sasuke wearing his hawk mask and Anbu gear. It said, "Name: unknown, age: unknown, probably between 12 and 14. Male gender: Konohamaru Anbu. Agent Hawk is the known alias. Kogi no Arashi, Firestorm, is his nickname. Position: S. Known associates: unknown names, aliases: Agent Kitsune, Agent Lion, and Konohamaru Anbu. Prize: 10 billion Ryu. History: not sure. Taijutsu: not sure. Genjutsu: not sure. Junin or elite Junin in ninjutsu. Known affinities: lightning and fire. Wanted for the murder of Osaki Juntaro, the son of Counselor Osaki of Earth Country. He was extremely fast and skilled in both fire and lightning jutsu. He created the bingo book after he and his 3-person team killed Osaki Juntaro, the son of the daimyo's counselor, by killing or seriously wounding his bodyguards, which included about 60 hired help, 20 mercenary Chunin, and 5 Junin. Special warning: proceed cautiously if you are with a team. If your manpower is equal to or less than 50 Junin, never attack. Important information: killed with no injuries, not even a scratch, a rank missing nin Takahiro Mamatsui, also known as Takahiro no Jimino Shifudo, shifting ground, from Iwa and some of his associates. After reading and laughing, Naruto raised an eyebrow and asked, "Firestorm?" Sasuke simply shrugged. The blonde then flipped to the opposite page. Name: unknown. Age: unknown, probably between 12 and 14, gender: female. Konohamaru Anbu. Agent Lion is his known alias. Rotasu Bore, Lotus Apparition, Ghost, is his nickname. Position: S. Known associates: unknown names, aliases: Agent Hawk, Agent Kitsune, and Konohamaru Anbu. Prize: 8 billion Ryu. History: not sure. Elite Junin in Taijutsu. Genjutsu: not sure. Ninjutsu: not sure. Known affinities: Yin Yang. Wanted for the murder of Osaki Juntaro, the son of Counselor Osaki of Earth Country. After she and her 3-person team killed Osaki Juntaro, the son of the daimyo's counselor, by killing or seriously wounding his bodyguards, roughly 60 hired help, 20 mercenary Chunin, and 5 Junin, she made the bingo book in a deadly close quarters. Special warning: proceed cautiously if you are with a team. If your manpower is equal to or less than 50 Junin, never attack. Notably, Kiri and some of her associates killed high B rank missing nin Suiran Samadare, also known as Kuryu no Samadare, early summer rains. Torrent, without suffering any injuries, not even a scratch. Hinata then gave Naruto a gentle eep. In response to his cheek kiss, she shivered with excitement as he whispered, "Lotusheim, my lotus," in her ear. The blonde's eyes widened as she turned the last page. Name: unknown. Age: unknown, probably between 12 and 14. Male gender: Anbu. Agent Kitsune. Known alias: Konohamaru. Shiroi Shinigami, Konoha's white death god, is his nickname. Position: highest. Names: unknown. Aliases: Konohamaru Anbu. Agent Hawk, Konohamaru Anbu. Agent Lion. Known associates: 25 million Ryu is the bounty. History: not sure. Taijutsu: not sure. Genjutsu: not sure. Unknown. Ninjutsu: assumed Junin. Unknown, assumed master. Kenjutsu: there are no known affinities. Wanted for the murder of Osaki Juntaro, the son of Counselor Osaki of Earth Country. Few things are known about him, other than the fact that he never kills because he glows white, vanishes from sight, and when he does, his targets are already dead, earning him his nickname. He also made the bingo book after he and his 3-person team killed Osaki Juntaro, the son of the daimyo's counselor, by killing or seriously wounding his bodyguards, which included about 60 hired help, 20 mercenary Chunin, and 5 Junin. Special cautions: proceed cautiously if you are with a team. If your manpower is equal to or less than 50 Junin, never attack. Seems to employ an odd method that renders him undetectable while allowing him to interact with the surroundings because his adversaries are already dead when he reappears. Notably, low S rank missing nin Hiromi Gorachu, also known as Yamahasai no Hiromi, of the former Iwa Explosion Corps, and some of his associates were killed without suffering any injuries, not even a wound. Will they press charges? Naruto asked, turning to face Hiruzen. The individual laughed. No, because if they did, the fact that the man's son was an outlaw would be released, so now they're trying this little cold war with us. Enough about that. What do you think of this? They all laughed when Naruto finished, frowning. I think that the counselor is a cheapskate, Naruto responded, blowing the Hokage away a little. I mean, who in the world pays less than 50 million Ryu for S-class? Wanted Nin. Even your son has 35 mils and he is in A-class. Flashback termination. Maybe I should go see Tazuna, my drinking buddy? The blonde pondered. Well, why not? He remarked as he looked through his storage scrolls, which included some of his best sake and a few other unusual beverages, such as one from the land of snow, vodka. I believe the name was that. Tequila from the southern region of Kei's no Kuni. Brandy from a country he couldn't remember. Temujin's country. And one of his personal favorites, Palinka, also known as Palinka, which a traveling merchant had for sale. He purchased the entire shipment of 3 crates. He even had juice and some exotic non-alcoholic drinks for Inari. Excellent. He hurried into an alleyway to make sure everything was all right, and then he crossed the nation to a seal he placed on the bridge. He brushed himself off and looked in the water's reflection before heading through the village to Tazuna's house. A huge error. When one of the village girls saw him, she recognized him right away. That was made easier for everyone by the statue inside the town hall and the bridge that bears your name. She screamed, startling Namikaze, Kya! It's him! It's Uzumaki-sama! And sprinted forward with a speed that would have made an experienced shinobi jealous. After hearing her statement, the other villagers appeared to spring up out of the earth and quickly followed her lead. Many Grateful Wave residents immediately surrounded Naruto, yelling his name and presenting him with various goods. Yes, no, well maybe, no problem, I think, yes, your daughter is very cute, but quiet. Naruto screamed at the end, making them all freeze. He had been smiling and sweating as he did his best to answer their calls. They all chuckled uneasily when he wiped the perspiration from his brow and said, phew. After realizing they had verbally abused him, they all retreated to give him some space after he apologized, saying, sorry about that. As I mentioned before, I'm here to visit the country as well as Tazuna and his family. Thank you for your kindness and sorry for my extreme reaction earlier as I was overwhelmed by your affection. He had a brilliant idea. At that very moment he produced numerous shadow clones by slightly opening his chakra. The number of Narutos on the street appeared to surprise the villagers. He told the villagers, each of you can take a clone and entertain yourselves as much as you decently want. Which caused some of the girls to object to the use of the word decently. The clones saluted and yelled a collective Asu, as he turned to face them and said, you know your job's the ones without a partner. Dispel yourselves. Yes, sir. After that, Naruto broke away from a joyful crowd and headed to Tazuna and Tsunami's house. He grinned as he recalled the loving mother stroking her son and berating her inebriated father for saying or slobbering offensive things. He heard a very familiar voice say, I'll get that, mom, as he knocked on the door twice. As Naruto gave him a scroll as a parting gift, Inari was practicing some skills while spending time with his mother and helping her around the house. One of these, tree walking, was as appealing to the boy as a chocolate bar to a man who was starving after it had unlocked his chakra. Tsunami discovered his covert training, of course, and rather than reprimanding him for concealing it, she gave him a devil's tail and instructed him to train while doing the housework. As a result, we now see the boy hanging upside down on the ceiling, tidying the higher cobwebs and the lights. When he heard a knock on the door, he thought it was way too cool to hang around like that and get upset about doing chores. He told his mother that he would respond to that. As he descended from his position, the annoying sun was directly behind the person, shadowing his features, so when he opened the door, he was unable to see who was standing there. Inari squinted to see better, but as soon as he heard him speak, his eyes widened. Naruto said, Hey Inari, long time no see. After taking a few moments to realize that his brother figure was directly in front of him, the poor boy attempted to tackle the blonde while yelling, Naruto ni-chan, more quickly than his age permitted. Naruto, for his part, braced himself as he gave the boy a hug in return, anticipating this kind of response from Inari. Then Inari shouted to the house, Moon, it's Naruto ni-chan, he came back. As Tsunami hurried out of the kitchen and joined in the embrace, there was a sudden smashing sound that could only be made by a drinking glass or a ceramic plate, followed by the sound of feet clattering quickly on the wooden floor. Naruto-kun, she exclaimed, giving her son from another mother a warm, gentle squeeze. She swiftly had enough, though, and stepped back with grace while grinning and saying, Welcome back. Hello Tsunami-san. Good to be back, replied Naruto, grinning back. A short while later, they were merrily chit-chatting at the same kitchen table where they had first connected. As it happens, Tsunami was cleaning a plate when the previous sound was produced since it was risky for her to do it herself. Naruto made 3 clones to do it for her even though she wanted to pick up the shards right away, but his clones wouldn't be an issue. The mother inquired, "So when did you arrive?" His groveling made the family members perspire. "Half an hour ago. Took me a little time and ingenuity to escape from my apparent fans in this country." She went on, "So I take it you have a mission nearby?" "Nope." Responded with a grin. "Just wanted to visit you guys and my old drinking pal Tazuna. Got the idea an hour ago." Inari interrupted, "An hour ago? How did you get here so fast?" "A jutsu called Hiraishin no Jutsu. I can use it to teleport instantly to any seals I have previously placed. I placed one on the bridge last time I was here," he confessed, and the woman gave him a stunned look. Inari, however, shared Konohamaru's mental pattern. The boy pleaded, "Teach me please." The blonde gave him a remorseful look. "Sorry Inari. It's too advanced and dangerous for you to try yet. Have you at least gotten to water walking yet?" "No, but I'm getting there," Inari said, looking down in embarrassment. Naruto gave an understanding nod. "See? That is 1,000 times easier than this jutsu and infinitely safer really. What's with youth these days? They always want the flashy techniques, not studying the basics. I still have to pound some this into my students daily?" With great surprise at his statement, Tsunami questioned, "You have students? Like Kakashi-san and Kurenai-san?" "No, not a genin team, but I'm an instructor at the academy. Really, those squirts think that they own the world. Don't get me wrong. It's good to have dreams, but they are like wallflowers. They have to have a snake biting at their heels to work hard. Literally, I'm trying to save their lives and they look at me like I'm the Shinigami," he laughed. "I kind of find that hard to believe since you are such," Tsunami started, but Inari, still a little shocked by the rejection, got over it and cut him off. Quite rude of him. The boy saw Naruto's irate red-slit eyes and felt his sensei ki wash over him. "Oh come on Ni-chan. I will learn that technique and nothing will happen to me. Please. Please, please, P," he said. His words stuck in his mouth dropped open and he froze. The blonde said, "Inari," in a tone that made his blood freeze. "It's good that you are enthusiastic about learning, but you must understand that patience is a virtue. When I said that I will not teach you was not out of ill intent or because I was belittling your abilities. I did so because I know what it takes to learn it and you are not ready for it, not unless you want your family to bury you in 5 separate coffins. That is if they find the body parts." He kept staring Inari in the eyes and making the child shiver. "Also what you have done is very rude towards your mother. Apologize this instant or you will find out what I do to keep my students in check, and trust me you wouldn't want that." "Ji gomenase, I'm sorry." Inari nodded quickly. Naruto turned to the gregarious blonde that everyone knew and nodded. Tsunami raised an eyebrow and grinned. She playfully sighed, "You know, I take that back, you really are an Oni-sensei," which caused the blonde to laugh. He responded, "That's what my students tell me as well, but you can't out the results," and they both laughed heartily. "By the way, where is your father?" She let out a sigh, "Sleeping like a log." Naruto questioned, "Drank too much?" "No, he finished the last of his booze 2 days ago. Right now he is on a short self-imposed vacation since he made a lot of money selling his carpentry works to the horde of merchants now passing through the country, and now he is just relaxing. I just let him sleep for now since he worked so hard, but I don't want this to stick to him and turn him into some lazy bones," the woman replied with a grin. Then, with a Cheshire smile, Naruto said, "Oh really? Well then looks like I have to do something about that," innocently, and proceeded to the man's room. Tazuna was sprawled on his futon with a huge sleep bubble emerging from his snoring airways. When he arrived he snuck to his side and took a deep breath. It was a calm and serene scene that had fallen upon the land of waves. The birds were singing, and the people were particularly joyful because they had not only regained their slowly increasing prosperity, but also because their hero had arrived and they each had a piece of him to chat to. Yes, everything was lovely and going well. "Wake up you drunk! Rise and shine!" was the loudest cry in the village at that point. Returning to the Tazuna home, the old man who was snoring quietly vanished before Naruto's eyes, and he looked surprised after blinking once. He noticed sawdust descending from the wooden house's ceiling. He looked up and saw a hole through it that looked like Tazuna. A little while later, a slightly battered and wood-covered Tazuna showed up at the room's door, snarling like a demon high on drugs. An exhausted carpenter was eating with his family on the other end of the table from where our favorite blonde stood, smiling like a fox. An hour later, after an epic chase through the village to his grandson's delight and his daughter's frustration, the man frowned each time he glanced at the smiling face. To calm things down, the blonde said, "Oh come on old man, relax, it was only a joke." The carpenter closed his eyes and crossed his hands, his face still frowning. "HMPH. was Tazuna's reply. Some joke, he started mockingly. Waking an old man up like that during his vacation. Growling, I hate you, he said. Hey old man. Appealed Naruto. Nope. Not talking to you, the elderly man said in a naive manner. So the shinobi tried again, saying, Come on Tazuna-o-san, open your eyes. No. The man replied once more with a lot of authority. Tsunami commanded, Oh for the love of, father open your eyes. With a sigh, Tazuna said, Oh, okay, what is it? As he gazed at the table full of alcohol, including assortments he had never even heard of, the man's voice faltered and his mouth began to water due to his inebriated instincts. Peace offering, Naruto said with a grin. So, can we have peace so I can drink you under the table? I'll even throw in a little bonus and promise you no hangover tomorrow. Tazuna's mouth flooded as he eyed the different labels on the bottles, each one more exotic than the last. Then he flashed inside the house, pulled out his best glasses, and exclaimed, I love you. As he gazed in awe at the blonde, they all partied for hours following that. Naruto said his goodbyes and kept his promise to Tazuna, leaving an advanced clone behind to supervise a small portion of Inari's training and to rid the man and his daughter of alcohol before they went to bed for the time being. Life was going well, but a storm was approaching. In a hidden location from the shadows, a menacing voice questioned, Are the preparations complete? The subordinate replied, Yes, my lord. Our new allies have been most cooperative. The man's voice reverberated through the complex's hallways. Good. I'll crush them soon, and my victory will be total coup. You can go now, Kabuto. Yes, Lord Orochimaru, Kabuto said, bowing significantly before disappearing into the darkness. Orochimaru hissed, Soon sensei, and then imitated his second in command. After his typical day of teaching at the academy for an hour, tagging out with a clone, performing his daily dose of D ranks, spending some time with the recently formed Konohamaru Corps, and sharing a nutritious meal with his two resident Hyugas, Naruto was lounging inside his compound. He was currently going through scrolls when he came across the summoning scroll that Kiri had recovered. It's better to give it to its rightful owners. I forgot about it. But first, he started reading a recently purchased Kirigakure bingo book when he saw an entry that made him tremble a little and start to perspire a lot. Oh man. Gigi's going to flip when he reads this he said. As soon as he had finished speaking, the village was rocked by the sound of Naruto ooh. The blonde sighed, looks like he just did. No, ya, think? Our amiable Biju asked. Before donning his trench coat and channeling chakra to alter its color scheme, Naruto simply chuckled in his head. It now had the appearance of tiger skin due to the uneven black and burnt orange stripes. Before nodding and Hiri shining to the Hokage tower's roof, he examined himself twice in a mirror. He walked over to the office doors and knocked once, Yeah Gigi? Before entering without a fuss. After a few moments of staring at the blonde, the man sighed and said, Naruto. He left it hanging in midair. I don't suppose you read the latest Kiri bingo book, have you? He asked. The Hokage only needed to see Naruto's shoulders drop to get an answer. After shaking his head erratically, the man calmed down and acknowledged that the blonde wasn't really to blame. Then you know that Konoha now has the first B-rank genin team in history, he said. When the Anbu guards heard the news, they nearly stumbled while standing motionless when one of them lost his temper. He grabbed the bingo book that was resting on the cage's desk corner. He flipped through the pages until he saw something that almost made him remove his mask. Special submission. Team 7 of Konohagakure Genin. Genin, the first Sasuke Uchiha is his name. Age range. 12 to 14 years old, male, gender Genin of the year, last Uchiha, and other known aliases. No nickname. Rank. High B role. Genin known partners. Konohagakure, Kakashi Hatake, Hyuga Hinata, and Naruto Uzumaki. Ryu bounty. 0 history. Not sure level of Junin in Taijutsu. Genjutsu. Not sure Junin or elite Junin in ninjutsu. Known affinities. Fire unique features. Sharingan, greater than average chakra capacity. Important information. Zabuza Momochi's unknown apprentice, who was estimated to have a lower rank, was incapacitated along with Naruto Uzumaki and Hinata Hyuga. Genin the second Naruto Uzumaki is his name. 12 to 14 years old, male, gender no known alias. No nickname. Position. High B role. Genin. Known partners. Konohagakure, Kakashi Hatake, Hyuga Hinata, and Sasuke Uchiha. Ryu bounty. 0 history. Not sure Taijutsu, not sure. Genjutsu. Not sure ninjutsu. Presumed Junin, unknown. Known affinities. Wind unique qualities, exceptional speed, expertise in fuinjutsu, and unique senses that improve jutsu. Although it should be mentioned that the Kiri swordsman had been engaged in a protracted battle with Kurenai Yuhi prior to being confronted by the genin, Kenjutsu expert, Master Raiga Kurasuki was defeated and taken prisoner. Additionally, in a single strike, about 300 armed bandits were killed. His sword seems to have unique powers. Medic Nin. Excellent important information. He incapacitated Zabuza Momochi's unidentified apprentice, who was estimated to have a lower rank, along with Sasuke Uchiha and Hinata Hyuga. Genin III Hinata Hyuga is her name, 12 to 14 years old. Gender. Female, known by the names Hyuga Heir, Konoha's Princess, and Kunoichi of the Year. No nickname. Position. B role. Genin Hyuga Hinata, Kakashi Hitaki, Naruto Uzumaki, Hyuga Clan, and Konohagakure are known associates. Ryu Bounty. Zero history, not sure Junin to elite Junin in Taijutsu. Genjutsu. Not sure ninjutsu, presumed Junin, unknown, Juken Jutsu. There are no known affinities. Unique features. Juken Taijutsu, Byakugan, and a greater than normal chakra capacity. Important information. She incapacitated Zabuza Momochi's unidentified apprentice, who was estimated to have a lower rank, along with Sasuke Uchiha and Naruto Uzumaki. The Anbu almost passed out, but he quickly regained his composure and went back to work. Something simply didn't add up, and Naruto was lost in thought. He obviously fought during the encounter, but not enough to provide much information. His quick thinking and highly educated mind led him to only one conclusion. "We have a mole," he whispered. After inhaling deeply, Hiruzen exhaled smoke from his pipe. Indeed, although this information could have been a spy from Kiri who happened to look at your fight. No, our info is too detailed. Our full names, our age and our positions are not something that should be that obvious, as we didn't just yell them out to everyone we met. Naruto responded with a nod. Also, my medic nin skill level and rank was only mentioned once during the trip, and the only reference to my fuinjutsu capabilities were my clothes when the shield activated blocking Raiga's attack. Also, the special senses jutsu is no doubt referring to my shinsogen. This is information that only a select few had access to. That is disturbing but not unexpected, Hiruzen went on. But we will look into it later. Right now I have something to talk to you, but before that, could you go fetch Hinata, Sasuke and Kakashi and be here in exactly 10 minutes? Naruto responded as if it were expected, but then he realized something. I don't want to call you a pedo, but if you get one mental image of her in the birthday suit, I will make Guy run around naked in your office for a week. Got that? Naruto pointed at the pale Hokage, who raised his left arm while touching his heart with his right as he nodded angrily. Let me check. Wouldn't want to flash to Hinata while she's bathing now. That's something to save for after the wedding, he said. After that, Naruto concentrated on his comm seal. He was given the all clear after 5 seconds in an orange flash. He was gone. Be right back, GG. Before someone else entered Hiruzen's office, he let out a sigh. The elderly Kage subsequently told the individual, "You know what to do. Wait for me to finish with his team before you make your entrance. And by Kami, if you do that stupid dance introduction of yours, I will make you take on D ranks for a week." After giving a nod, the individual left once more. Team 7 bowed as they entered the office. In precisely 10 minutes after giving a nod, Hiruzen gestured for his guard to depart, and they did so since it was clear that the Kage had some confidential information to share with them. Naruto then turned on the privacy seals. The Kage laughed and said, "Ah, Team 7, good to see you, or should I call you Team Yurei? Anyway, I'll get straight to the point. Although the success of the Anbu project I had you on would contradict this, I am officially withdrawing you from active force and moving your team to the ASTB section." The Hokage responded by inserting another intake into his pipe. After exchanging glances, they turned to face the Kage. "Not that I'm questioning your decision, Hokage-sama, but why are we moved to the sleeper reserves?" was the first thing Kakashi said. Agents who had, or were, retired from Anbu active duty but still had the option to return to duty with full authority in the event of an emergency were known as ASTBS, or Ansatsu Senjutsu Tokushu Butai Special Agents, Sleeper Agents, or Sleeper Reserves. Hiruzen grinned. "As I'm sure you know, the Chunin exams are coming up in 2 weeks' time." He stopped and they nodded. "I also know that you are way beyond Chunin in strength, but your official rank is still Genin also. While the main reason we host these exams is to promote Genin, the principal reason is because it is a replacement for war." Cut Naruto off. The elderly Kage paused once more before putting his pipe down and glaring at them gravely. "For that reason I want to show them all the strength of Konoha's Genin. That's why I am suspending your Anbu activity for now, so you can devote yourselves fully to making the village proud." "Exactly," puffed Hiruzen. Also these exams are meant to attract clients for missions. Hi. They all said together, good, if that's all everyone but Naruto can leave because I still have something to discuss with him. Naruto-less Team 7 bowed and departed in Shunshin's Hiruzen, then pushed a buzzer on the intercom system. Just as Naruto was about to inquire, someone came into the office. That same individual wore their long, white, spiky hair in a loose ponytail. He was wearing dark green clothing, and a red. Fuck it. It was Jiraiya the Toad Sannin. A startled Naruto yelled, "You!" while barely controlling his rage and voice volume. Jiraiya smirked as she said, "Hey Gaki," but recoiled when she saw Naruto leaking red chakra. "Whoa kid, calm down, I just want to talk, okay?" Kurama started, "Careful Naruto, my chakra is reacting to your anger, keep cool." The blonde's eyes still showed anger, but the chakra moved away from him. As if speaking to a roach, Naruto said to Jiraiya, "And pray tell me, why should I listen to you? How about the man who wrote the book you've been named after by your father? Your godfather?" And Jiraiya received a small checkmark. The blonde threw a backhand, which the man had to block before he could finish, but there was enough force behind it to cause him to skid all the way to the back of the room. "Don't you dare use that word, you old fart. I don't care if you were Dad's sensei, I don't acknowledge you as my family," Naruto responded. In an attempt to calm the boy down, Hiruzen said, "Naruto, please calm down. I don't want two of my best shinobi starting a war in my office." After blinking in bewilderment, the blonde teenager grinned and said, "Oh, you mean the blow? Sorry, that was an allergic reaction." Allergic reaction? Hiruzen scowled as he glanced at his grandson. The blonde sighed and waved his hand in submission, saying, "Yeah, I'm allergic to bullshit." Naruto blinked naively. "I mean, it sure is easy to say that you are my godfather when it suits you, isn't it?" he said. The blonde whispered, "Like leaving me alone was," loudly enough to be heard. Jiraiya started, "Look Naruto, you know that I had to," but was immediately cut off by the blonde's expression, which threatened to hurt him if he went on. "If you try that bullshit about protecting me from outside sources, I will castrate you with a rusty senbon." Naruto growled. "Do you think that he or any other god-forsaken place would try to kill me inside Konoha with you around? It would have been easier to just attack en masse, since the shinobi forces inside the village would have been crippled by the Biju's attack, and every elemental village would have known that there would have been a fledgling Jinchuriki that could not control the power, and let's not forget that the Yondaime died, and that would have been headline news. That's when Konoha was at its weakest, and it would have been a perfect time for an outside attack. But why didn't it happen him?" Naruto continued, pushing the white-haired man into a mental corner. "I'll tell you why. It was because they were just as weak from the Third Shinobi World War. Iwa had lost a lot of lives in their kamikaze attacks, Kiri was in a terrible state as it still is, Kumo was having Jinchuriki troubles of their own, and Suna was in a state of financial collapse. Do you think that they would have risked another war with a major village by attacking a fucking Sannin's protege?" yelled the child, eventually losing his cool. "That's bullshit, and you know it. The same kind of bullshit that my old man fed to everyone when he cursed me with this life." With a worried tone, Hiruzen said, "Naruto, I thought that you didn't hate the Yondaime." Naruto responded, and the old monkey gave him the expected response. "Oh, I don't hate him, GG. I loathe and resent him for what he did to me. Only for that I follow my own mottos. One being forgive but never forget. You should know that better than anyone. I was a 5-year-old back then and was just happy to get some people who didn't look at me like I was made of glass and who didn't try to set me on fire. But as I grew and got smarter, I saw what that bastard did to me." Naruto started over. Coldly, Jiraiya started, "How dare you call Minato a bastard, brat? He was 5 times more of a man than you are." But a very frail Boido Nami slammed him into the couch. "How dare you question me, coward? I dare to call him that because that's what he was. For crying out loud, I don't hate him, and I understood why he did it. I still fucking love him for Kami's sake, but I hate his hypocrisy even if he believed in me with all his heart." Naruto fought against the urge to let tears forth. "Hypocrisy?" A perplexed Hiruzen inquired. Naruto nodded. "Yes. You know that bedtime story, a biju can only be sealed inside a newborn. That's a big bullshit, and you should know of it, old man, both of you. Take Kurama's previous Jinchuriki's Mito Uzumaki for example, was a full-grown woman when she sealed him inside herself. Mom was already in her early teens when the duty transferred to her. So it would only be logical that it didn't have to be child to be a container. But what? I dug into it some more. Why didn't Dad choose another? Why didn't he give the choice to somebody who could actually make that choice? I pieced together the history and finally figured it out. It wasn't a newborn that was needed for the sealing, but an Uzumaki, since only we have the chakra and will to hold something so powerful back. Why? Because we are distantly related to the Senju who, believe it or not, together with the Uchiha are descended from the Sage of Six Paths. Dad didn't choose me because I was a newborn but because I was my mother's son and the son of the cage. He decided my life before I could say yes or no. He treated me like a slave, like a damn piece of rare material for a prison. He may or may not have done it in ill will, but it all comes down to the bottom line. I never had a choice, and for that part one will forever loathe him as he spit on my life because he allegedly never had a choice. Newsflash, people. There is always a choice even if you don't like the options, which brings us to the second part of Minato. The shitty father drama. He could have taken all of Kurama with him into the Shinigami, but like a good Hokage, he chose the many over his son so that the village Biju balance would still be kept. I don't care if he loved me, he did the one thing that will never raise him in my view. He willingly sacrificed my childhood for the greater good. Damn it, I hate those words more than anything. Saying, for the greater good, is a coward's way out of the remorse from a morally bad decision. There is no greater good, there is only sacrifice, and the only sacrifice that counts is the selfless one. I didn't make that sacrifice, somebody else did it for me. Naruto finished clenching his hands so hard that his nails drew blood before relaxing his fists and teleporting away. The Sannin shivered as Hiruzen sighed and said, well, at least he didn't try to tear you apart like last time. As he nursed his black and blue forearms, he thought that child had too much power for his own good. That kid can throw a backhand, damn it. On top of the cage mountain, Naruto is then seen sitting atop the Yondaimi's head. His hands held a battered but well-preserved copy of Tale of a Gutsy Ninja. This was the scene that Jiraiya saw when he shunshined there. However, Naruto beat the man to it before he could say anything. This is a good book. I always tried to be what the character is described as. To be the one who ended the curse of hatred, the everlasting cycle of pain that rocks this world. I've kept this book since Haruko Ka-san gave it to me for my 8th birthday. The same day that 3 assassins tried to eliminate me, the blonde continued to make the man lose light in his eyes. They were not foreign shinobi but 3 dead drunk Chunin. They were absolutely pathetic and were sent Betty by, but one of them got to say, want to know what he said? Naruto asked without turning to Jiraiya. He said that I was the bastard demon of a filthy whore and her mongrel of a fuck buddy. The Sannin then had a couple of murderous thoughts. When Gigi told me that he had defended me in the council and spared me from execution, I asked myself even more questions. Why did I have to face the wrath for something neither Kurama nor I had any blame for? Why did Dad abandon me like this? And most importantly, why did my only family leave me to face it all? I almost tore out his throat with my bare hands while thinking, not so that I would cause him pain, but just because I wanted to know why. I tried to look at the fact that you had to protect me from outside influences and run a spy network, but it was too convenient of an answer, too many unknowns. I racked my brain trying to find the truth, and then it hit me. You hated me, Naruto replied, turning to face the recoiling man. No, hatred is too much of a word. It was more like you didn't want to be around me. You stood up for me to fulfill your duty as godfather, but that was all. After that you left right away. You blamed me for Dad's death. For that, damn you to hell. I didn't want that, you bastard. The words of Naruto were heavy but they were barely audible. And then when your pain passed you returned, 10 fucking years later, not even sparing a glance sooner, all the time traveling the world, getting drunk and having fun with women while the village had its fun with me. The blonde was overcome with emotion. I sound like a conceited, selfish brat right now, don't I? Well, screw you. I think I deserve a little selfishness. The young man swayed his head, and you know what? I will be even more selfish. I want to bring peace to this world so no one has to go through this pain. I will break this accursed cycle of hatred that rips the world apart, even if I have to take on all the malice in existence. And I think that I'll start with you, he said as he stood and examined the individual with a conviction-filled frown. Jiraiya could only remain silent because he was shocked by what he had said. With a smug grin on his face and his hand outstretched for a shake, Naruto declared, if you can forgive me for my outbursts, I will forgive you, but don't be fooled, pervert. I will never forget myself and my past, but I will grow from it, and one day I make you realize your own wrongs. And then I'll be right there next to you, helping to mend the mistakes of the past and bring forth an era of love, and I will be Hokage. That's my dream, no, a promise. Smirking, Jiraiya took the blonde's hand and said, outbursts? You were like a damn typhoon? The man recollected their initial encounter after 2 days of pursuit. Let's just say that the man's clothes were torn from innumerable close misses of the blonde's sword, damn it. The Gaki only needed to be an expert in both teleportation and cloning, possess near divine endurance, and have all-seeing eye-enhancing jutsu. The blonde simply scratched the back of his head and put on his most ridiculous face. Now that we made peace, I have to tell you that unofficially I want to ask you to train under me before and after the exams. I know that we don't have that many styles in common, but we are both chakra freaks, and I am also a seal master that I hear you strive for. Also, I'll have you know that I am the man with the record for the most missions in Konoha and probably the elemental nations, so I want to share some of my experience with you, just like I did with your old man when he was a genin. Plus, unlike my former teammate, I know I'm getting old and want to leave my skills and summons with you, so what do you say? What do you mean unofficially? Naruto responded, and what about Kakashi-sensei? I mean, if it's only up to me, I accept, since Kakashi-sensei would then get to train more with Sasuke considering the Sharingan and all, and Hinata has her family to help her. Naruto snickered as the man, with his chest spread like a peacock, asked, first off about Kakashi, do you honestly think that any level-headed sensei would refuse one of their students the right to be apprenticed to a Sannin? A Sannin who almost had his balls cut off by a 10-year-old academy student. Kurama finished contributing to the blonde's enjoyment. And as for your other question, Hiruzen-sensei actually orders you to be my apprentice, but I wanted this to be first and foremost your choice. I'm guessing that sensei already knows about this from his crystal ball jutsu, so what do you say we get some ramen and then we start our first training session, said the elderly Sannin, grinning at Naruto's smile and nod. The magic word made Naruto smile even more, and before you could say orange flash, they were on the rooftop with a view of Ichiraku's. Jiraiya paused to recover from the lightheadedness. Although his student had taught him the technique, it had been a very long time since he had used it. They were in a lovely clearing farther west of the 44th training ground, Forest of Death, after a time jump and 9 ramen bowls, 2 of which were Jiraiya's. Okay kiddo, let's start, although I'm not sure if I should teach you the Rasengan or summoning first. With a nervous laugh, Naruto said, yeah, about those two, before lifting his right arm straight up into the air, palm up. Immediately after, you could see chakra being gathered in a ball. A half-second later, an elaborate, glowing seal that was mainly made up of 7 swirls of similar sizes appeared on his hand. However, it was unusual that from the 7 swirls, 6 different colored chakra began to gather. While the pure yin-yang chakra shell and inner parts condensed and compressed it until it finally reached a point where 7 bright circles of 7 colors, white, metallic gray, crimson red, aqua blue, pale cyan, dirt brown, and electric silver, were emitted from the pure white core. The chakra began to react to one another by merging and forming. The inside of the sphere resembled a violent storm, with red lightning and sand being violently mixed with the cloud-like water by the extremely sharp winds. From beginning to end, this process took roughly 3 to 4 seconds. Jiraiya gazed at the blonde, who now had the completed item in one hand. Incredulously, it now resembled an atom, with the branches of a galaxy encircling a pinhead-sized white core that contained a serene, misty material that resembled powdered rainbow. The most unexpected finding was that the core would always show the same image of a slightly angled galaxy, regardless of the angle at which you looked at it. Unable to control his thoughts, the Sannin exclaimed, "What the hell is that?" Content. Rasinga, Chaos Element, Spiraling Galaxy. Wah. Jiraiya stammered. Naruto smirked. I did some research about the Rasengan, and from stories mostly told by GG I found the basic principles about it. It seems that Dad was inspired by the Bijudama, Tailed Beast Bomb or TBB, the ultimate Biju chakra attack, and luckily Ni-san is the strongest of them. So with his help, I worked for 3 months and finally got the basic Yin-Yang Rasengan down. After that I tried expanding it with elemental chakra but found that it's impossible to focus both yin-yang chakra necessary to compress the shape and supply elemental chakra to power it through the same chakra tenketsu. So I did the next best thing and used a cage bunshin to supply the elemental part and the spin while I focused on maintaining the sphere, but it was too costly even for me to split my chakra through the bunshin and to perform this jutsu, so I went back to the drawing board and used a different method. Seals. I developed a seal that would do the work of transforming chakra into all forms of elemental chakra and also did the spinning while I focused solely on compression and containment. It's incredibly stable in its final form, but if you slip even a little during its formation, it could wipe you out and a town the size of Konoha off the map. Fortunately, I tried this out in the middle of the desert on a mission to Wind Country with a cage bunshin, and it worked. Partially the location where I first tried it is now an attraction in Wind in the form of a bottomless pit in which the surrounding sand slowly falls into, called Stardust Sand Falls, because the official story is that a meteorite created the hole. Holy shit. Jiraiya thought. This finished product has 3 times the destructive potential since the fused elements form a new type of negative matter or dark matter in its own contained miniverse, which is kept from the normal one by my chakra. Once something touches it, That something has lost form, this world being matter or energy. Notice the rings around it? Well, that is leftover energy from the air around us, as well as sunlight and heat, falling past the event horizon, the sphere edge, and taking the colors of the main sequence. I won't bore you with the translation of these words, but I will tell you that this Rasinga can be used while held in hand to create a virtual drain from which nothing can escape or... After completing his sentence, Naruto leapt into the air, about twice Gamabunta's size, and threw the Rasengan farther than was visible to the naked eye. He did this by twisting his body once to gain momentum. 2 seconds later, a huge explosion could be seen in the forest training grounds distance, and a light dome the size of Konoha grew in the distance overall. It appeared that a huge-ass TBB was fired by an irate Biju. Thrown like a shuriken, although what you see is the energy released by the positive matter and negative matter cancelling each other out and escaping from the ruptured spherical containment field. I can fire about 6 of these in succession before I tire out. At that moment, an Anbu team showed up, but Jiraiya pushed them away, and they soon left. Jiraiya said to the boy, who was now 2 feet ahead of him, "Well, I suppose that means that I only have to teach you summoning today and then we will spar." A seal ray materialized as soon as the aforementioned boy touched the ground. They were several hundred feet above the ground the next second. It took a few moments for the elderly man to notice the 20-foot wings with gold feathers flapping to his right and left. He examined the owner of these wings and saw what appeared to be a hybrid of a bird and a crocodile, with the muscular legs of a panther and the body of a reptile, but with hard feathers covering its entire body that resembled scales the same color as the wings. "Kachiyose. Kinryu," Naruto said quietly with a very lovely male voice. The dragon asked, "Why have you summoned me, Naruto-sama?" "Greetings, Kinryu. I was demonstrating my abilities to my new teacher, the Toad Sage, and I thought that it was the best to show the most majestic of all dragons. Please set us down and then return home," replied Naruto. Kinryu grinned and followed instructions. "Okay," Jiraiya said. "As you can see, I can summon dragons, although I have permission to sign other contracts as long as they are not enemies of the Elder Summons. One of which is the snake summons Kinryu, though is the most majestic of them all with his golden feathered body, but because of that he has one huge ego that must be stroked in each of my sentences when addressing him." Naturally curious, Jiraiya questioned, "How, and why not snakes?" Naruto proceeded to tell him about how he obtained me more about it. "You see, snake sages tend to think that when they master their abilities they ascend to dragonhood and thus present themselves as such. This and the fact that they are mostly bloodthirsty creatures that ask for live sentient sacrifices have angered the true dragons and have thus been declared as enemies." "Well, do you still want to sign the Toad's contract?" Jiraiya muttered. "I see." "Sure," Naruto exclaimed, his smirk concealing his true motivations. The contract was then shown by a toad the size of a rhino that Jiraiya had called forth. When Naruto checked it over, he saw the Sannin's signature, his father's, and the names of all the toads he could call forth. After some hesitation, he composed himself and signed it after taking a drop of blood from his finger. Jiraiya gestured, "Try it out." Naruto knew exactly which toad he wanted to call forth after reading the contract for the toad names. Using Sojin Seishin, he filled his hands with chakra after drawing blood from his finger again, and then he touched the ground and said, "Kachiyose." Jiraiya, who was observing from a distance, experienced nausea because the toad that Naruto called forth. A toad the size of an adult's arm emerged in the clearing after someone exclaimed, "No jutsu," and a puff of smoke. The toad looked like it was wearing an obi sash and was colored in burnt orange and black. It seemed to float in midair, too. The toad questioned Naruto, "What the hell? Who the fuck are you?" Naruto became irritated by the toad's rude tone. "The strongest summons of all. After all, ends your name with Sama," and this little bastard began yelling profanities in front of him before even knowing him. However, he quickly overcame his irritation and bowed lightly to the toad. The blonde grinned and said, "Hello, Toad-san. I'm Naruto, your newest summoner." The toad continued, but Naruto cut him off, saying, "Huh? Well, I guess that you randomly summoned me out of your first try otherwise." The toad raised an eyebrow when Naruto said, "Oh, on the contrary, I summoned you on purpose. You have something which belongs to me." Skip ahead in time. Team 7 arrived at the academy building early in the morning and made their way to the examination room. While traveling, they paused to observe a sizable group of genin gathered in front of what they recalled to be the broom closet. They weren't solely to blame because the closet was genjutsu positioned to give the impression that it was the examination room, and 2 boys were standing guard. Young, obviously henge-ed versions of the eternal Chunin, and they instantly recognized them. They thought, idiots, and were about to head to the 3rd floor, where the actual exam was being held, when they heard Katetsu yell and then whimper as Sakura, who had attempted to force her way in, flew backwards into the air. "What is she doing?" They must have learned to see through a genjutsu of this caliber from Kurenai-sensei. They believed? Oh, I get it. She is trying to reduce the competition by playing dumb, though I'm not sure about the playing part must have been Shino's idea. A green blur halted the hit as the hanged Chunin was about to execute the kill. Naruto yelled, "Hey Lee," and the boy turned to smile. "Greetings friends. Are you here to show your flames of youth in this challenging exam?" he yelled. "Yes Lee-san." Hinata replied. "What about you? How is your new taijutsu coming into play?" replied Sasuke. Lee's response, "Yosh, my new moves will light the youth in everybody that will blaze through the springtime which powers it." Youth, left everyone dumbfounded. Sasuke grinned and said, "HN, just make sure you try and build up a resistance to blacking out when drinking and do it away from Konohamaru. Flames of youth, burn down houses when you get drunk." He and his team then headed to the actual exam room after saying hello to Lee's teammates. Just outside the room, they encountered their sensei, who wished them luck more out of habit than necessity. The tickle of the weakest ki they had ever experienced was felt as soon as they entered, and they raised an eyebrow when a small portion of the examinees gave them a murderous look. Not to offend any Aburame, they simply dismissed it like a bothersome bug and attempted to move to a corner, but the other 9 rookies met them before they could reach it. Naruto had the opportunity to speak with Choji. With a smile, Naruto said, "Hey Choji." The plump boy, chomping on some chips, exclaimed, "Hey munch Naruto," during the snack. The blonde inquired, "Did your dad get the bear summoning contract?" "How do you know about that?" "Wait, it was you who left it in our mailbox," Choji said, ceasing to eat. "Guilty as charged." Naruto laughed. "Got it in my first mission outside the village, and knowing your clan's history, I knew it belonged to you guys." "Well, thanks a bunch. It belonged to Dad's grandfather and was lost when he died in battle. I want to thank you again, and Dad said that whoever was responsible for this will be a friend of the Akamichis forever. He also said, and I quote, 'A lesser man would have kept it, ransomed it or sold it, not to look a gift horse in the mouth, but why didn't you?'" Naruto responded, swaying his head back and forth, "Like I said, I knew it belonged to the Akamichis, and keeping it for whatever reason was just wrong. Well, know that you will always be welcomed in my home, and you can always chow down with us. You are the only one outside the clan who can keep up with us anyway." The big-boned kid laughed. Then Naruto bowed and went back to his team after greeting everyone back and resolving the argument between Sakura and Ino about Sasuke. A genin named Kabuto came closer. When they turned to face the hall, they noticed that everyone was staring at them and leaking ki. "You should keep it down because you're attracting too much attention," he said. Then Naruto lowered his gaze behind his hair. After a moment or two, his shoulders began to move up and down as he stood there. A sound akin to sobbing accompanied this with his face aimed at the ceiling. Naruto let out a full-fledged, insane laugh. Death Note. Kira, Light Yagami's final laugh when he got caught. Japanese version. Giving everyone there more than just shivers. It continued to get louder and louder until they finally realized that he was laughing. It stopped with a gasp, just as fast as it had started. After staring at the ceiling for a few seconds, Naruto turned back to face them, his crimson-slit eyes gleaming. "The fuck ya looking at?" And, using 15% of his ki, concluded. The majority of the Chunin hopefuls looked away right away. Everything else was frozen in place, with the exception of a red-haired boy with a huge gourd, a kanji for love, tattooed on his forehead, and thin black rings around his eyes. Although his 2 teammates, a gorgeous blonde girl with a large fan on her back and a boy with excessive makeup on his face, its war paint, appeared to be pissed off, the aforementioned boy grinned and gave Naruto a gentle nod. Naruto remembered that he had previously had a few encounters with them and couldn't help but think, "This will be fascinating." "Hey boss," was how Sarutobi Konohamaru, who was wild but fun, greeted his idol. The Konohamaru Corps, his crew, stood on either side of him. Naruto returned the greeting as he and his teammates left Ichiraku's, "Hey guys, having fun?" "Yes sir," they replied without hesitation. After all, they were in his class. "Boss, Ebisu-sensei is on a mission today, so I was wondering if you could play ninja with us." Konohamaru was beaming. From behind the children came a voice that said, "What kind of weird is that? A ninja playing ninja?" After learning about the Konohamaru Corps from her boyfriend, Hinata grinned and said, "Hello Kiba-kun. These are the Konohamaru Corps and are sort of Naruto-kun's apprentices." "Hey boss, who is this? Is she?" Maru started, but Naruto's passionate kiss on Hinata, who appeared to be on cloud 9, gave him his answers. Maru's words, "Wait ta go boss," You got one hot girl fray, became lodged in his throat due to the blonde's immense pressure. Even Kiba started to shiver from the intensity of it. Naruto was beaming, but the evil aura that surrounded him was scratching the asphalt. Maru, you didn't know this, so I'll let this one slide, but only about 3 males in the entire world are allowed to speak like that about Hinata in my presence, and those are me, Sasuke and Hiyashi-sama, the latter two due to being childhood friends, and respectively, her father. The next time you even think something like that, I will shave your head and tie you under a waterfall to clear your mind. If you want to compliment a girl or a woman, you say they're pretty, cute or beautiful, hot, makes you seem like a pervert and a horn dog, and I put those to sleep, either for the night or, and the Mayan Crimson version appeared in his, permanently. All Konohamaru could do was nod angrily, followed by Udon and Kiba. Moegi, meanwhile, was staring at the blonde with utter admiration and flushed cheeks. Sasuke was grinning in the meantime, and Hinata was chuckling softly behind a delicate hand that concealed a powerful force. Konohamaru-kun, started our adorable Hyuga. While I appreciate your compliment, do take those words to heart. 1. Naruto-kun can be very, she said, giving him a deadpan glare, and also what he said is true, even if you hear that girls like bad boys. That only applies to your personality, and I mean you have to have confidence, courage, and be creative and fun, not to be a jerk. She concluded with a smile, making the boy blush and giving Moegi the impression that she had found a worthy ne-sama. Anyway, boss, will you continue to play ninja with us? Kono attempted to shift the conversation. Another interruption occurred before the blonde could respond. A ninja playing ninja is kind of dumb, isn't it? Sakura stepped in. Our adorable blonde remarked, and Kurenai-ne thought that they wouldn't fit together in a team. She is practically Kiba's echo. Actually, Sakura, playing ninja, is what I call situational training. She said they are merely academy students, so it's less intense than battle simulations. I use all of their tricks to get them to either hide from me or catch me. Working on strategy and teamwork are strengthened when a stronger opponent does that to you, he responded. Oh! Cried Sakura, and Kiba. A dark shadow surrounded Konohamaru as he said, Hey boss, who's the pink washboard? With her knuckles cracking and her hair casting shadows over her eyes, Sakura questioned, What did you say, brat? Maru responded, Oops, sorry about that, billboard brow. Recognizing the animosity but not the threat. Perceiving his apprentice's impending peril, Naruto chose to start another lecture with the words, Maru, now you will learn some important lessons. Wailing, the boy said, What, lessons again? Indeed, there are 3 of them actually. One is that every action has an equal and opposite reaction, in this case, your words being the action. Second, how to speak in the presence of the opposite gender, extended hard way version, and finally, hell hath no fury like a woman scorned. Those are today's lessons. To the chagrin and fear of his teammates, Maru questioned in confusion, what? Run. Naruto commanded with a sly smile. Maru started to ask again, but a slight tremor stopped her when he turned to look behind him. He saw Sakura's fist in the center of a 2-foot radius crater, her eyes burning with rage, and her hair flying everywhere. Maru's face turned pale, and she fled the scene, followed by a crazed Sakura. In order to ensure the Hokage's grandson's safety, Naruto made the decision to follow them. As he turned the corner into an alley, Maru was getting a fair amount of separation from the girl. He ran into someone there. I won't describe the sand trio because you already know them. That hurt Gaki, exclaimed Kankuro, who held him up by the scarf as he attempted to flee. Tamari urged her brother, Oi Kankuro, put him down before you get us in trouble, instead. After realizing the situation, Sakura composed herself and attempted to make amends by saying, Please put him down, we were just fooling around. For the moment, Naruto was merely silently staring at them. These men are Konoha-genin, aren't they? The puppet master thought. Suna, huh? Must be here for the Chunin exams, but their chakra is at least Chunin already, so either they are not participants or they are somewhat skillful, Naruto thought, observing the headbands and surreptitiously using his Shinsogen. Let's see, the guy has a large puppet on his back and, based on his chakra, is prepared to use Kawarimi. His physique doesn't seem fit for direct combat based on his muscles, with a body not designed for close combat and a huge folded fan made of chakra-conductive materials, as well as Suna's reputation as a wind master. We have a puppet master who most likely uses poisons and a long-range wind specialist for the chick. Fascinating. But I want to teach this brat a lesson in manners before you know who shows up. Kankuro laughed. Let go. Maru yelled repeatedly. The Suna teen grinned and said, Ho? You're quite the energetic brat. Naruto yelled, That's quite enough, and then charged like a madman, his moves rife with gaps. The blonde landed on Konkuro's back after he tripped him with his fingers behind his back as his grin grew wider. Who are these individuals? Knowing that they were hardcore if they were able to defeat Naruto, a worried Sakura thought. The Suna boy said, "What's this? Konoha genin are so weak." The Naruto on the ground cried out, "Code Spirit. Let him have it, Konohamaru," after a few tense moments. The poor boy, who had been struggling up until that point, stopped moving. Konkuro appeared perplexed by this until Maru grinned and made a click sound, and blue chakra started to swarm around him as if he were on fire. Then Maru raised his right hand and cut Konkuro's hand off the puppeteer, then withdrew his arm in agony, forcing Maru to leap back before he could land in order to dodge the preteen's spin kick. "Why you little?" Konkuro started to take Karatsu in his hands. Tamari started to say, "Oi Konkuro, stop it, are you going to use?" But her words were cut off when another Naruto suddenly materialized behind Konkuro, holding two kunai, one placed near his jugular, while the other pressed its tip against the Suna boy's outstretched arm. "Wah!" Both siblings gasped. "I wouldn't do that, puppet user Kun. You could lose an arm," he said, pressing the kunai deeper into his skin, although it was still just a sting, or worse, the other hand touched his neck. Before the Naruto on the ground vanished in a puff of smoke, Konkuro could only ask, "How?" Naruto grinned before he felt Tamari reach for her fan. Solid clones, quite the useful technique. Especially for analyzing an opponent's style up close, don't you think? He said. He opened the floodgates on his ki and directed everything towards her, saying, "I wouldn't do that as well, Kunoichi-san. I would hate myself if I took an arm or two from your friend here." Tamari felt and saw Shukaku tearing her apart. In that instant her eyes did not blink, and she collapsed to her knees in shock, panting, sweating, and drooling. "I admit you have nerve," Naruto laughed, "to claim that Konoha-nin are weak when your friend here can't even stand 25% of my ki. If I went a little higher, I wonder if she would have committed suicide or would she simply have a stroke." "You in the trees, come down," Naruto scowled before teleporting a short distance away from the pair. Gaara appeared as the two slightly recovered and turned to face the tree in question. He said without emotion, "Konkuro, Tamari, you two are disgraces to the village." He then sanded them down to their level. Konkuro stammered, "Gee Gaara?" While Tamari remained stunned. Listen Gaara, these guys started it." The redhead commanded, "Silence, or I'll kill you." Konkuro attempted to save his skin by saying, "Hi, I understand, we were at fault." "Excuse them," Gaara said, turning to the Konoha group, then glancing at Naruto. "He is good, he moved faster than I could sense." What is your name?" he inquired. "Perhaps he will prove my existence." In the meantime, Naruto and his tenant were engaged in a heated discussion. However, the blonde said, "He seems familiar." "He does, of course. Ni-san. He's Shukaku's puppy, Kit." The chakra seeping out of his seal is almost palpable. That has to be a bad one. "Ichibi no Tanuki. Shukaku, one-tailed raccoon dog. The one and only. Listen, Naruto, would you kindly do this for me?" With humility, Naruto questioned, "Isn't it polite to present yourself first?" "My name is Sabaku no Gaara. Gaara of the Sand Waterfall, lit. Desert, trans. These are Tamari and Konkuro." Naruto bowed lightly and said, "A pleasure, my name is Naruto Uzumaki, brother." Konkuro started off lightly, saying, Hey wait a minute. I think you must be confused. Gaara is our brother, not yours." Gaara's glare silenced him, and they recoiled when he said, "I have no family." "That's not what I meant. I was referring to the power of a human sacrifice, spoken differently than Jinchuriki. I think that you can do that in Japanese," Naruto said with a smirk. After a few tense silences, Gaara questioned, "Which one?" Naruto briefly closed his eyes before opening them to say, "Kurama," in a slit red manner. Gaara's eyes widened and he arched an eyebrow. "Uzumaki, mother is interested in you. Mother says that KY." With no intention of fighting, he teleported to Gaara's side and put a hand on his shoulder. "Oh, tut-tut. Sorry for the rude interruption, brother, but that is not something to say in the open," he said, sensing that the shield remained motionless in the face of the Sunanin's surprise. After whispering something into the red-haired boy's ear, he quickly gave a 180 and started to walk away. Waving at him, he left with the other members of the Konoha party. Later that evening, Naruto stood atop the Hokage mountain. Atop the fort's head, some odd wooden stakes with seals buried in the ground were visible a few feet away. They were a barrier that blocked chakras. Naruto wisely remarked, "So you came." At that moment, Gaara emerged from the sand. "Uzumaki, Mother is interested in your words, Gaara said without showing any emotion. You know, I call my tenant big brother, but to call a Biju, mother, is kind of exaggerated. Naruto then broke out in a sweat. Following Lee's murder attempt at the hospital, Gaara started his monologue by telling him about his life, his ceiling, and his overall purpose in life when he was done. Naruto was actually crying for him. Even the stoic Gaara started to perspire as 2 anime tear streaks ran down his cheeks and snot dangled from his nose. Gaara became interested when Naruto said, "You poor thing. Poor misguided dope," before straightening out with a serious expression. "You know, I am the Sandaime Kyuubi Jinchuriki?" Naruto asked half expectantly. "Do you know what the Shodem one said to the Neodaime? She said that in order to be able to seal a Biju in a container, that container must first be filled with something. Do you know what?" He hoped the meaning of the tattoo on the Red's forehead would become clear. Unfortunately, it wasn't. "No," Gaara replied. "Love?" Naruto said. Gaara said angrily, "I told you that I am loveless. I live for myself. I love only myself." Naruto shook his head in response, saying, "No, you are not. I at least know that your siblings love you." Gaara's eyes narrowed. "One of the perks of being Kurama's Jinchuriki is being able to sense emotions. When we met earlier I sensed their love for you. Buried deep under their fear I couldn't sense any hatred." When Gaara first screamed, "You're wrong," his eyes went bloodshot, his hands gripped his head, and his sand flew around him in helixes. Naruto shouted back, "Oi Shukaku-san, stop it," and Gaara appeared to instantly relax. Looking down at the ground, the Suna shinobi continued to pant, "Uzumaki, mother wants your blood." He screamed as sand rushed in Naruto's direction. Naruto merely sighed. "I'm sorry, brother," the blonde muttered before pushing his hand into the Red's body. He teleported out of the sand's path and directly in front of Gaara's strange black tribal markings were now visible on his hand. Tensha Fuin. Shisho Fuin, transcription seal, 4 symbols seal. The black markings on Naruto's hand vanished, and Gaara's eyes rolled in the back of his head, causing him to lose consciousness and his last line of defense, the sand armor, to instantly flow off of him. The blonde laughed lightly. "Although I said that I would fix your seal if you came in peace, you didn't really think I wouldn't come prepared for the worst. That S-rank seal ought to hold your so-called mother, till Ni-san, and I have a word with her." Then, with his eyes closed, Naruto put a hand on Gaara's head after a moment of concentration. His eyes opened wide, glimmering with the full power of the Shinsogen. Ranpu. Satori. Light element. Satori. Before he found himself standing on a lake of blood encircled by an endless darkness in which the kanji word, love, was strewn like stars but much larger. The background behind the blonde swirled. After a brief moment of concentration, Naruto found himself facing a massive golden cage that was made impenetrable by glass like crystal behind the bars. He could see Shukaku's hands, feet, and neck held by sand chains that appeared out of the shadows, but they were doing nothing to stop the Biju from pounding hard on the bars without even scratching them. When the genin finally noticed Gaara scratching on the glass of the gates, he cleared his throat to attract the attention of the Suna shinobi. "Uzumaki." The redhead exclaimed in a panic, "What did you do to mother? She's not audible to me. I'm unable to reach her." He hurried to the blonde but was restrained by ropes of light. "Slow down, Gaara. I just severed Shukaku's connection to you and covered the current one with a strong seal. You two have not been hurt. I simply wanted to speak with your mother." Then Naruto went up to Gaara and put a finger to his forehead. Shukaku's war cries were heard immediately after a couple of holes in a round-type pattern appeared in the seal's glass. With a shout of, "Shukaku-san, calm down and listen," Naruto was able to get the crazy Biju's attention. You're Kyuubi's brat. What did ya do? The chains are finally loose but I can't get past these freaking bars." "That's because it's a seal 10 times more powerful than the original seal and it isn't maintained by Gaara's state of consciousness." Shukaku screamed, "Fuik ccckkk," and pounded harder on the bars, saying, "Leave me out. Leave me out. Leave me out TEME." Another voice spoke through the beast as Naruto tried to speak to it, waiting for it to realize that it wouldn't happen. "Would you calm down, brother?" For his part, Shukaku froze before growling, "That ya, Kyuubi?" Kurama replied, "That's right, little brother." Ichibi shouted, "Wa, da, fuck ya, want bastard." Before Shukaku received its response, there was a tense silence for a few moments. "First of all I want you to calm down and listen to the kid. He has something to say that you might do good to listen to. I will tell you the second part after that." With a sneer, Shukaku turned to face Naruto, who was still patiently waiting. "Well, What are ya, waitin' fo, cough it up, he said. Daw, fuck. Don't ya, be goin' ta, sleep on me ya, here. Naruto, for his part, closed his eyes and took a deep breath. The Biju was caught off guard when Naruto asked, "It hurts, doesn't it? Humans can be so selfish, can't they? Being treated like you are nothing to be considered, like swords and arrows, kunai and scrolls, weapons of mass destruction, never considering your feelings." Daw, fuck? Shukaku asked incredulously. Every word Naruto hurled at him resonated with him. It hurts so bad that insanity is a pleasant choice, but even that gets boring after a while, especially if you are ageless and immortal, right? There was silence for a while. While I can't even come close to understanding the second part, one can picture it, especially since I lived the first one. Nobody caring if you are hurting, nobody praying for your safety, nobody considering your feelings, Naruto said with a scowl and closed his Jinchuriki, power of human sacrifices. What a fitting term, in more than one way, the power of our tenets, the power of our wills, and both our sacrifices, never done voluntarily. Chosen from birth to bear the burden of hosting Biju, our life is forfeited with our first and last breaths. As humans, we are given the honor of being the mighty keepers of peace. We sacrifice our happiness, our flesh, blood, and bones, our chakra and our spirit, and in some cases, our sanity, so that others may live peacefully the life we never had. Like our Biju tenants, who were created with a love for the world, they are now viewed as things of war and weapons of mass destruction. We eventually lose everything and become hollow, and when others are asked for more, we also become hollow, eventually losing everything to despair and disappearing, so the cycle goes on. Shukaku felt a mixture of tears and rage. The brat was correct. Like Naruto's foolish persona, it was a front for insanity. It was the only thing preventing it from going completely crazy. However, he now had to face the reality that even his human host suffered, something he would typically overlook: unruly ninja. But there is one thing that can fill the gap, that small but universal thing that can heal loneliness and put out the flame of hatred burning inside you. Love. That four-letter word is so abundant yet so difficult to find. I don't want to come across as selfish, especially to you and your siblings, but I have suffered. Whether my suffering is small in comparison to yours or completely different, it doesn't matter. What matters is that I love my adoptive family, Kurama ni, my birth parents, my girlfriend, my friends, my students, and my summons, so I can confidently say that I love this world. They gave me the will to love, not selfish self-care, but true love, which can only be attained when you don't care about anything else, and they return the favor. I now have a new mission: to spread it throughout the world, to put an end to the wars of bloody hatred, and to protect it for as long as possible. Will you join me, Shukaku-san? There was an awkward silence as the beast was flung. It only took a few seconds, but the tension made it seem like forever before it responded to the question, "Why should I?" "It's what old man Tu-san, or insert sage six-path name, would have wanted," replied Kurama. Shukaku barked. "Don't ya dare speak about I am Kyuubi. He loved ya more than any one of us. You are his favorite. He gave you the most power." "No, I wasn't. That man was incapable of favoritism, and you know it. Just like the kid, he loved the world equally. Our power difference was just a side effect of his jutsu. He loved us all equally." Shukaku winced and appeared dejected, but its pride prevented it from expressing its feelings, and Kurama was still resented for. Kurama went on, "And for what it's worth, I'm sorry. Wah? I'm sorry for calling you weak because you have one tail. I'm sorry for walking out on you and our siblings, and I'm sorry for anything else that made us drift apart and you to hate me. I'm sorry, little brother," Kurama said with an air of regret. Then Shukaku scowled deeply and closed its eyes. A hard cringe appeared as his mouth opened. A moment later, with both hands, he pounded hard against the bars and then let out a loud roar. Shukaku screamed, its tears moistening the sand of its cheeks. "Damn it, damn it, Kurama. Damn it, old man. I get it, brother. I fucking get it. I miss the old man. I missed you, brother." Kurama grinned loudly and said, "Missed you too, Shu." With a beam of joy on his face, Naruto turned to face Gaara and shattered the light ropes. Naruto turned to the side, and Gaara did the same. "While they were having the conversation, I took the liberty of looking through this place and I found something that you might want to see," Naruto said. A tiny white light appeared in the pitch-black depths, growing larger and larger until it reached the diameter of an adult. A stunning woman emerged on the screen. As the light gradually began to charge with color, her short dust-brown hair was unkempt, her eyes were bagged, and she was sweating, all of which suggested that she was tired. With weakness, Gaara said, "Mother, Kurora. These are your memories, Gaara. They're from your birth," Naruto explained as the woman turned to face them. What a small, feeble child, she said. Looking at what they thought was Gaara with lifeless eyes, the redhead started to panic at the words that would follow, but to his astonishment, the Kurora smiled broadly and gave him a gentle embrace. Gaara, no matter what happens, I'll always protect you, and I will always love you. The memory then faded in the sounds of beeping hospital machinery, and with a final, she's going into cardiac arrest, the light vanished. Naruto looked sad. I traced the source of the memory and found a gentle, motherly chakra coming from a soul shard sealed inside a different part of you. That chakra constantly mixes with sand around you and tries to embrace you with it. To protect you. It appears that your mother kept her word at the expense of her own spirit. She truly loved you, Gaara. At this point, Gaara was crying quietly and uncontrollably. Uzumaki, I'm confused. What do I do now? He said. That Gaara, you will have to find the answer on your own, but know this. No matter what it is, so long as it doesn't threaten another innocent's dreams, I will support you, and I think that your siblings will as well. Naruto cracked a grin. Why would you do that? The blonde replied with a hand gesture, because that's what friends are for. Weary, Gaara said. Friends? Naruto joked, or brothers if you want. With a sly smile, Gaara took the blonde's hand. Can I choose both, Uzumaki? Then Naruto said gravely, on one condition. What? The slightly alarmed redhead inquired. Call me Naruto. Naruto, the blonde said, throwing his hand over Gaara's shoulder. After blinking a few times in bewilderment, the Suna shinobi finally burst out laughing, without killing, for the first time in years. Concurrently, in Konoha Kankuro pounded his fist against a wall and questioned, where the fuck is Gaara? The Sand siblings' hearts skipped a beat when the door flew open and they saw Naruto helping an unconscious Gaara. Tamari said, what in the first? Shish, can't you see your brother is sleeping peacefully? Where's the bed? Naruto reprimanded her. She gestured robotically to her bedroom, where Naruto laid Gaara gently before shutting the door. With a sigh, he turned to face them, who appeared to have seen the Shinigami. They all went to the hotel's roof after he whispered to them, I know you have a lot of questions, but let's take this outside so we won't wake him. I will state the most important things now and then you will ask your questions. First, I changed his shitty seal with a more powerful and stable one that doesn't depend on him being awake, so he can now catch up on his rest. The seal that I used was the Hokage no Fuin Shiki, which was designed by the 4th Hokage. Yes, it's perfectly safe, and yes, he can still access Shukaku's chakra, and also I gave him the key to the seal so he can adjust the seal or open it fully, and yes, his sand shield is still active since it was not powered by the Biju, although his chakra control might be a little shot now. Shukaku is now his friend and not his insanity instigator, but a real friend, and so am I. He also told me about the invasion plans and told me that if you have a problem with telling me, then you can take it up with him. Well, that's about it, so now shoot. They simply took it on the spot when the blonde weirdo began spitting out the information because they were still in disbelief over seeing Gaara sleeping soundly. Okay, Tamari said. Who are you really? The kid laughed. Naruto Uzumaki, Konoha's greatest Jikukan user of all time and current top seal master specializing in the lost Uzumaki of Uzushiogakure sealing style, and Gaara's first real friend at your service, and gave a brief bow. Incredulously, Kankuro said, friend? Tamari gave a little giggle when Naruto responded, as in comrade, buddy, chum, the asshole who can embarrass him and still make him smile friend. Kankuro, on the other hand, was imitating a drowning fish quite well. Gaara asked me to tell you something before you passed out, and I quote, tell those two that I'm sorry and that I want to be their little brother again if they let me. It appears that I have outlived my usefulness, so I will say goodbye. Oh, I almost forgot. And with that, he vanished in a flash of orange. They paused to rest while continuing to gaze at the spot where the blonde had vanished from. That's some shunshin, to break the silence, Kankuro said, and Tamari gave a stupid nod. Tamari, on the other hand, brushed his hair to the side and gave him a small goodnight kiss on the forehead, which made him smile unconsciously, and then she followed her other brother's example. They then crept into the apartment where they stayed and slowly crept into the now red-haired boy's sleeping quarters, looking blankly at Gaara's sleeping face before Kankuro scowled, pulled the covers over his little brother's shoulders, and crept out of the room with a smirk. In the meantime, Hinata was sparring with Neji in the Hyuuga compound and was about to deliver a very weak Hakusho when she sneezed and superpowered her move, blasting poor Neji through a tree and planting him inside a crater on a wall. I still don't know who you truly are, Uzumaki, but I will thank you for giving me back my little brother. All I can say is that who will be with you will be one lucky girl. Unless you like guys, she thought, shivering at the last part as she considered the waste. The following morning Naruto told his team, and that's how it happened. After waiting for their reactions, he felt a chill go through him and turned to face the source, who turned out to be Hinata, who was grinning but emanating a sinister aura behind her. The source turned into a female Tengu crow, half man wearing a shit-yourself scary mask, monster. So, Naruto, she started kindly, you went to meet an unstable Jinchuriki without informing us or the Hokage or having any kind of backup. Even Sasuke was frightened by her aura, which was mother-daughter, as she asked. Yeah, no, may I just say goodbye? And Hinata chased after him as he zipped off. Come on back here, Naruto Uzumaki, and get a manly beat, she called out to him. After roughly 10 minutes of chasing, Hinata cornered him at the foot of the Hokage monument. Then, in order to face the rage of the raging Hinata who was stomping slowly in his direction, he closed his eyes and made his peace before dying. He was shocked when he felt her fists gently pound against his chest and her face burrow above them, followed by a sobbing Hinata whisper he had anticipated pain and hoped it would be brief. You're a baka. If I lost you, how would I respond? After a few moments of shock, he finally snapped out of it, remained silent, and gave her a gentle embrace. Now Naruto turned back to Kabuto, who appeared to have seen a ghost, after grinning and nodding at his new friend, the Suna boy. See, the issue has been resolved. The Uzumaki flashed a radiant smile. What? As he snapped out of his daze, the glasses-wearing Konoha asked. The part about drawing attention, as you can see, the issue has been resolved. Are you certain of that? Kabuto pointed to the other genin and asked. The frozen portion of them was staring at Naruto blankly when he looked. I asked you a stupid question, okay? Naruto growled at them and they quickly turned around and ducked under whatever they could find. Naruto nodded. Yup, I'm sure. Alright, so would you like to learn a little bit more about your competitors? The teenager with the glasses inquired. How? Briefly, Sasuke inquired. He grinned and pushed up his glasses, saying, well, I have some ninfo cards that have some information about each of them that I have collected over the years. What makes porn cards appealing to me? Kabuto stumbled while standing as Naruto spewed out. These cards aren't porn. Kabuto stood up. Really? Nympho cards, though, didn't you say? The blonde is perplexed, faking it. Ninfo, as in ninja information cards, not nympho, Kabuto clarified. Oh, the blonde grinned and stuck his tongue out. Kabuto thought, this is the same genin who drowned the audience in Ki earlier. Do you know anything about anyone? Yamanaka Ino, a platinum blonde, inquired. Indeed, the boy with the glasses grinned, exciting Ino's curiosity about gossip. Kabuto-san, how did you obtain the information? Hinata inquired. This is just info I managed to gather during my tries at this exam. Have you tried this before? Kiba inquired. This is my 7th time, and since they are held twice a year, this is my 4th year. Really? Well, you must suck, the Inuzuka exclaimed. Kabuto grinned and said, or the exams are just that hard. However, Naruto scowled and said, if the competition is this way, it can't be that hard, and even so, judging by the way he holds himself, he is quite skilled. He has no flaws in his stance, which you wouldn't notice right away. He resembles a coiled cobra. It may not seem like much, but you won't realize it until it bites, so why doesn't he trigger my instinct for lying? Either he is a skilled liar or, like Shikamaru, he is a man who gives up easily. Fascinating. Although it doesn't apply to my team, or rather, Team Yurei, Naruto grinned and said, well, they can't be that good. I mean, how much info can a genin get on a person's skill set, especially ones from another village? Oh, I see. Let's see what it says about you. Then, Kabuto gave a rather irritated response. Konohamaru rookie Naruto Uzumaki is here to help. Even though he felt something was wrong, Naruto grinned once more and turned to face the class. Noting that most of them had plucked up the courage to listen in, he then used a weaker form of ki to blast them. Take care of your own damn business. They immediately looked elsewhere as the blonde snarled at them. Let's see. Naruto Uzumaki. Parents. Unknown. Position. Konoha genin. Leader of the Konoha Uzumaki clan. Academic statistic. Dead last with bare minimum, Kabuto said, humming as he withdrew a card and charged it with chakra skills. Junin Sensei Hitaki Kakashi. Holy shish tea. Kabuto shouted, drawing a lot of interest. This isn't possible. You are listed here as a seal master, Kenjutsu master, medic nin first class with honors, and chakra powerhouse. Kabuto rubbed his temples and remarked, mission statistics. I'm beginning to think that these cards are getting faulty even though I made them to last. Why? Did Ino ask. Get a load at this. Kabuto sighed. Mission rating: 4 B ranks, 64 C ranks, 576 D ranks, and an A rank. Well, that last one was a C rank gone wrong, but nothing we couldn't handle, Naruto said. Yeah, but usually being a chakra powerhouse and medic nin is like trying to mix oil and water, Kabuto replied. Avoid reminding me, it's a pain, but I make it happen, Naruto moaned. Your control over your chakras must be divine, Kabuto said. Yes, I kind of wanted to be like Hashirama-sama and follow in the Hokage's footsteps. Naruto clarified that he was a medic nin levels higher than his granddaughter Tsunade and a monster in chakra. Yeah, I did hear that. You were also a dead last typically. Medical professionals must be at least book savvy. Can you offer me some advice as I work as a medic as well? Deception is a shinobi's tool. According to the dead last part regarding the medic portion, keep trying and remember that practice makes perfect. Naruto went on, that's the key. The card simply states, check out the Kirigakure bingo book for more information. Thank you. Fortunately, I possess one of those. Kabuto nodded and took out a scroll, opening the Kiri bingo book. Let's see now. Urake, Uziri, Uzumaki. Naruto you know what, I'm not even surprised. Says here you are part the first B-rank genin team in the history of the shinobi villages. It restates the info on the card, says that you use futon, wind, jutsu with no hand seals and that. Wow. You took out 300 armed help with one move of your sword and evened out with a former Kiri 7 swords. Man, I take that back, I am surprised. Kabuto started to shiver. Yeah, I'm just that good. Naruto then smiled broadly before leaning in to whisper in the teen's eyeglass-wearing ear. Remember what I told you, Kabuto-san. Deception is key. That info doesn't even scratch the surface, so, for your own good, tread lightly. Kabuto was limited to a slight nod. The examiners, led by Ibiki Morino, entered as the doors suddenly flew open. In contrast to the blonde's ki, the intimidating man's presence seemed as soothing as a summer rain. Okay, you brats, shut up and pay attention, he yelled. What the devil? Is Ibiki Jii-san present? Why would a top-tier T&I agent administer an exam? Either he is here to intimidate us, or we will be tortured for this part. I'm sorry, Oji-san, but I reached them before you did. Naruto pondered. All right, you jerks, come on over, draw a number, and then take your seat, Ibiki shouted. They all pulled out their seats, but when Naruto's turn came, he smiled predatorily at Ibiki, who smiled back, making the other genin who were unaware of their relationship shudder. Their seating is the same as the original. The rules were then explained by Ibiki. All right, guys, shut up and pay attention. Before the allotted time runs out, you must respond to 7 questions. He smirked as he started, hearing the moans right away. You need at least 5 points to pass. For the first 6 questions, each correct answer is worth 1 point. If you were caught cheating once, you lose 2 points. If you were caught again, you lose 3 points. And if you were caught again, you lose 4 points. This means that if you cheat 3 times, you will automatically fail. 5 points are awarded for the 7th question. Though Sakura was the one who caught the examiner's attention, there was an immediate commotion, with the majority stating that they had never heard of this type of test. But where's the 7th question? Ibiki grinned and said, the final 15 minutes will be used to ask the 7th question. Are you ready? Get started? These rules are really fucked up, and although I could answer these questions in my sleep, they are not something other than specialists from the intelligence and decryption part of the T, and I could answer off the bat like this, Naruto said, getting lost in his conversation with his teammates. Hinata replied, thanks to your tutoring, I am able to answer 2 or 3 of them. They are much more difficult than anything a typical genin could answer. Perhaps Sakura-san could, but she only studied books during her academy years. So that means that this isn't a normal test. Let's combine our information and figure it out. So the basics are as follows. 1. You have the opportunity to cheat instead of failing immediately. 2. Our proctor is a top T&I interrogator who specializes in mental intimidation techniques. And 3. The rules put more pressure on the examinees because you lose more and more points for every mistake you make, regardless of how you look at it. Guys, this all adds up to the fact that information gathering, we have to cheat. They all spoke as one. Then Naruto laughed, saying, well, that's easy. I recognized one of the examinees. He's already a Chunin from the T&I, and I kept wondering what he was doing here until I saw him start writing the answers without skipping a beat, and considering that we have to cheat, I'm guessing that he has planned it here to provide the information for gathering. Don't activate your dojutsu just yet. I will use our link to give you the picture of his answers because my Shinsogen is the least obvious technique. Copy that, said both of his teammates. This piqued Ibiki's interest because he expected the blonde to know the answer. But he found that neither the Uchiha nor the Hyuga girl used their eyes. Like the other more obvious clan members, such as the other Hyuga, whose bulging veins gave him away, the Nara, who used his shadow to get a random genin to move his test slightly to the side so he could get a good view, the Inuzuka, who had his dog cheat for him, the Yamanaka, whose jutsu hand seal and the Pinkette's unconsciousness was a dead giveaway, and so on. After a few failures, a few more than the anime, it was eventually over. Alright, maggots, stop using pencils. Now you must know that there's a hitch before you get the final question, Ibiki shouted, and they did. In the class, there were a few whispers, but they soon stopped. Be aware that responding to the final question is required before you receive it. You will fail and have a better chance the following year if you refuse, as your points will automatically drop to 0. Alright, then we'll answer the query, Kankuro yelled. But, Ibiki broke off, grinning sickly. You have to pick a teammate who will never be able to take the test and will always be a genin in order to get the question. The majority of them yelled that it's unfair, and this time there was a loud commotion. You can't do that. Some people here have previously taken the test. Well, I am an examiner this year. All of the cages and village leaders have given me permission to set the rules. Naruto exclaimed, bullshit. His teammates agreed, saying, I would have thought that if it weren't for Kiri's state it's completely locked down from entry, so gaining that kind of authorization would have been as close to impossible as humanly possible. After that, Ibiki opened a tiny, broad cardboard grid with the village's emblem and the team names for Konoha, Team 7, Team 8, and so forth displayed like a tiny leaf whirlwind. The little piece of paper to the right of the larger one may have caught your attention. You will write the name of the teammate you want to cut off, fold it, and put it in the box that matches your team and village. They began to murmur once more. After a while, an AIM team stood up and put their papers down, and Naruto saw that one of them had a sly smile on his face that was concealed by his mask. Other teams followed until Naruto saw that Sakura was hesitantly placing her paper slip. The blonde scowled, stood up, and marched to Ibiki with his teammates. He showed Ibiki his paper slip, and the man arched an eyebrow at this. This was just before Naruto tore the paper, then burned it with pure Kaden chakra. Those who disregard the rules are scum, but those who show no concern for their teammates are far worse than scum. Our sensei taught us. The blonde then looked at the boxes that had slips already in them and simply said, worse than scum. The majority of teams were already following their lead when he shook the ashes from his hand and performed a 180, followed by Hinata and Sasuke, who had already cleaned up their slips, and left the room. A Chunin met them outside the room and said, you're Kakashi's team, right? He would be pleased to hear that you passed. So please go to room 315 and wait for the second examiner. They nodded before rerouting other teams that were leaving, he muttered. Meanwhile, a good but still smaller than expected portion was left in the examination room. Well, maggots, I must tell you that you fail and offer you my congratulations. Why? Find a solution and leave my class, he roared out after saying that. In the meantime, Ibiki walked in R315 grinning kindly, which was a little unsettling given who he knew. Genin. Congratulations. You must have taken that strange shit-stained blonde's advice seriously because you were here, or you must have understood what this test was about. With a branding iron as a teddy bear, the man who sleeps in a Iron Maiden says, in defense, Naruto yelled. Ibiki's eyebrows raised, but he dismissed it and went on to explain the test's hidden meanings. Naruto, however, got up, walked to the center of the class, performed a little Doryuheki, earth wall, a short distance from a side window, and then walked to the window so that the entire group of silently interested examinees could see him. After mumbling, 3, 2, 1, slowly, Naruto opened the window, and a tan blur zipped through it before stopping abruptly when it struck the earth wall, kicking up dust and causing Naruto to laugh uncontrollably. A swirly-eyed Anko Midarashi was seen adhering to the wall in an awkward position once the dust had settled. Oh, did someone get the rank on that jutsu that hit me? She asked, shaking her head. Nei-san, it seems like you struck the jutsu, in between snorts, Naruto said. You. She gestured to the blonde. Retaliation for the time you added extremely hot sauce to my ramen. My ramen is unaffected by anyone, Naruto exclaimed. Her anger made her tremble. Oh, when I get my hands on you, she said. Then, with a toothless smile, Naruto lowered his head just enough to reveal his red glow eyes between locks of hair. Is that a challenge? The last time he saw that look, Anko was painted pink and covered in feathers, and she simply jerked her head from side to side in a quick, terrified motion. The blonde simply laughed and said, I thought so, and walked back to his chair. Then Anko jolted out of her reverie, saying, ahem, I am the sexy and single. Naruto was interrupted, and sadistic. That too. Anko nodded. I'll be your proctor for the second exam, along with Anko Midarashi. First, second, third, 63? Ibiki, you left 21 teams this year? Your touch must be slipping. Or they are just a good crop, not to mention there's a pesky blonde mixed with them, Ibiki sighed. Maybe when I'm finished with them, I'll cut them in half or less. Okay, guys, join me. Ground of training 44 two scrolls, one white with the kanji for heaven and the other darker with the kanji for earth, were in Anko's hands as she stood in front of the TG. Alright, brats, take center stage. The next section of the test will be administered here. This is where you will be imprisoned with one of these scrolls for 120 hours, or 5 days. The goal is to reach the tower in the center of the TG before the allotted time has passed and obtain a pair of scrolls by any means necessary. The rules are as follows. You and your team will be disqualified if you leave the training grounds. You and your team will be disqualified if you arrive at the tower without a functioning team, such as a critically injured teammate. And you and your team will be disqualified if you accept outside assistance from a non-participant on their own initiative. You and your group will be eliminated if you open any of these scrolls in the forest. You will have to transport classified information intended only for certain eyes as Chunin. Think of this as a trust test. Before we start the test, you must go to the tent and sign the agreement that you will take it on your own initiative. Once you turn in those slips as a team, you will get your scroll. Have any inquiries? What is the purpose of the slips? Ino inquired. Oh, that's only to absolve us of any accountability for your deaths. The woman gave a menacing smile. How are we going to provide food? Choji screamed and asked. This forest has a lot of wild plants and game, and since everything is so large, even an Akamichi will find enough to eat. That is if you can survive the man-eating poisonous giant plants and enormous predators like a 15-ton bear or a 27-foot-long panther, Anko said with a smile that quickly turned into a grin. Greetings from the Forest of Death, also known as Training Ground 44. Home, home, home. Naruto yelled. The woman then emerged behind the teenager with another kunai held a short distance away from him, and Anko threw a kunai at the blonde, but it was deflected by an unseen force millimeters before it could even touch his cheek. You know, loudmouths typically speak first. She pressed her assets against his back and whispered into his ear. Well, there's nothing in that forest that seems more dangerous to me, Naruto smiled. Really, what? She moistened her mouth. Look to your right, Naruto laughed again. When Anko did as he had instructed, he was greeted by a beaming Hinata whose Tengu aura was exploding, turning the normally calm and frightening woman pale with fear. I will tell you this once, Anko-san, he said. Stop putting your breasts on him. The woman obeyed, returning to her starting position so quickly that Naruto would question whether she was using a Senkaipo-like jutsu weapon. After a few minutes, they were at the gate that would soon allow them to enter the section of the test where a heaven scroll was sealed inside one of Naruto's wristbands. When the clock struck noon, the gates opened, and they sped through it, entering the forest in less than 10 seconds. Now, what should we do? Do we try to set up traps nearer the tower or do we hunt for a team? Sasuke inquired. May I make a third recommendation? As he removed an earth scroll from his coat, Naruto posed the question. You got that when? Hinata inquired. As far as I'm aware, nothing can conceal something from the Shinsogen, aside from perhaps another dimension. Ironically, an Iwa team was the closest one to us with an earth scroll. When I looked over the teams, we have a scroll and they have something that will vanish in the next 10 minutes. So a Senkaipo and a Ranpu hanged shadow clone empowered Kawarimi. Naruto laughed, and his teammates grinned or smirked. Well, we can now head straight to the tower or we can take a safer route. I never thought to put a Hiraishin seal on the tower during all of my training here, Naruto said, grimacing. Sasuke cast his vote, saying, I say that we head straight for the tower. I concur. Hinata went on. It's straight to the tower. After finishing, Naruto and his teammates concentrated on turning off their bands. A moment later, they vanished into thin striations in the bark of the trees. When Hinata's Byakugan detected something halfway there, she immediately yelled, watch out. Nevertheless, a chakra-infused wind blasted her and Naruto backwards before they could seek shelter, sending Naruto tens of feet through the treetops and landing in a clearing while she flew through a few branches into some deep foliage. What hit me? Before the snake lunged at him, he saw a massive viper staring at him with ravenous eyes. He did, however, perform a brief Senkaipo a short distance from the crater the snake had excavated in an effort to capture the blonde. Oh, are you hungry? Eat this, he said, creating a clone as it leapt in the snake's direction and landed in its mouth. The clone uttered those words. After swallowing the clone, the snake turned its attention to the original. Watch out for indigestion. As soon as Naruto grinned, the snake burst into flames. Daibakuha Bunshin, tummy burns can be a killer. In the interim, after a few taijutsu, ninjutsu, and even some Sharingan genjutsu, as well as a few deft uses of Kawarimi, Sasuke was having the time of his life, fighting the renegade Sannin Orochimaru, and they were both panting heavily. Kukuku, I see that your brother was right to spare you. Sasuke-kun, you are still somewhat behind him, but you definitely have power. The user of the snake licked his lips. You filth, don't even dare to mention Ni-san. Sasuke yelled. Even though they were both holding back, Orochimaru was obviously superior, if only because his damn body did inhuman things like throw up whenever he suffered a serious injury. Then, using his speed, Sasuke broke the impasse by vanishing and then reappearing behind the snake with an axe kick ready, sending Orochimaru a few feet backwards when he attempted to block it. Sasuke then used a Hosenka no Jutsu, Phoenix Flower, to burn through a couple of branches above the Sannin, which began to fall like steel beams from a subpar construction site and threatened to bury the man as Orochimaru was about to flee them. Sasuke made a few hand gestures, and his hair started to spark with electricity before pointing forward instead of backwards as usual. Raiden. Durangan Ryari, Lightning Spear Barrage, the Uchiha yelled. There were no more than 7 lightning bolts in the air at any one time, though there were many if you counted the entire series of lightning strikes that sprang from the boy's hair and struck the branches. Orochimaru called forth a snake and dove into its mouth for protection, but the sharp wood fragments sliced through the snake's hard scales and bones. The branches exploded, sending splinters everywhere like shrapnel. After everything was finished, a slightly bloody Sannin emerged from the mouth of the dead snake. That was really amazing, Sasuke-kun. Before it exploded, you charged the wood with Raiden Chakra, and the element's piercing power enhanced the sharp wood's potential for damage. Kukuku. Very impressive indeed. Your body must be mine. The creep gave a hiss. He then lunged at the genin, who was still assessing his circumstances, but he was blasted sideways and struck by a massive wind jutsu that resembled a pipe before he could strike. Hinata leapt to Naruto's branch as he appeared close to a somewhat exhausted Sasuke. It was a Sannin. Shit. Naruto cursed, how sweet, then he grinned. Oh, you left Naruto-kun, my pet, behind? Surprised, the snake asked. You mean that unkempt purse? It must have eaten something because a moment later it was extremely exhausted. So, are we going to take this show on tour? Sasuke moved ahead of Naruto as he punched his hand. I own him. Sasuke grinned after raising an eyebrow. Naruto instantly grinned and nodded. Then you must go full power since we still need you to finish this exam, Hinata intervened. You mean nothing? Before he could finish, Hinata nodded, and Naruto flashed his Cheshire grin and said, Did I ever tell you that I love you? He raised a half seal in response, and Hinata followed suit. Sasuke's closed eyelids were briefly covered in tribal markings before they broke like glass. What was that? Orochimaru inquired inquisitively. The beginning. Sasuke started laughing, and when he opened his eyes, a pattern resembling an atom in black and red appeared. Of your end. Mangekyo Sharingan. Amaterasu you. Orochimaru burst into black flames without time to appreciate the magnificent eyes. Shi-T. He screamed, performed a brief, barfing rebirth, and then slipped out of his skin as the flames consumed it entirely. Before low chakra reserves forced them back into a stalemate, this was repeated 3 times. This has been enjoyable, Sasuke-kun. Sasuke kicked the man who ducked under him, but he couldn't avoid a second bite because he didn't anticipate the Sannin's neck extending out of proportion. I'll leave you a little parting present, the Sannin said, leaping at the boy who mimicked his action. Ahhhhhhhh. Sasuke fell to his hands and knees, clutching his neck, and screamed. Shit. Naruto jumped to his side followed by Hinata who yelled, Sasuke-kun. I hope you're having fun right now, Sasuke-kun, but I'm going to have to leave if your teammates are even half as good as you. As he started to bury himself in the ground, he declared, We shall meet again. Whhhhhh. Sasuke passed out from the pain as his adrenaline ran out. When Naruto finally got a chance to examine his neck, he noticed 3 Sharingan-like tomos where the bastard had bitten his teammate. It's a curse seal, and a very strong one at that, Naruto swore. Seal? Curse? Hinata inquired. It's Orochimaru's Hiki Jutsu, that pedo. Ne-san also has one, and after I examined it, I had to put it away. He encloses a portion of his soul and his chakra within it. The chakra then floods the person he uses it on, intensifying their aggressive tendencies. It also makes someone crazy. It will take some time for me to seal it before it takes root in him. Take as much time as you require, Hinata confirmed with concern. Together, they pulled the unconscious Sasuke into a tree hollow, where Naruto applied some quick shield seals and started caring for him while Hinata took charge. It took Naruto 3 long hours to create a seal that was strong enough to withstand a few days of roughing up, and after witnessing his friend's face returning to its normal color and resting soundly, he fell asleep next to him, leaving Hinata to watch over him. A group of sound genin arrived in the area a few hours later. "Are you certain they're present, Dosu?" his slender, taller comrade inquired. "Yes, Zaku, they are present. We were warned by Orochimaru-sama to be wary of traps," Dosu replied. "Hey everyone, if we wish to proceed with this test, we must finish this quickly," Kin informed them, eliciting a yeah, from Zaku and a grunt from Dosu. They started looking more intently, but when a couple of senbon flew at them, they had to duck for cover, and Hinata fell into the clearing with Byakugan on fire. "What do you want and who are you?" calmly, she inquired. "Well, it appears that I can get a good deal today." Kin glared at Zaku as he scowled at Hinata as if she were a piece of meat. "Just be sure to remove her as soon as possible. We have yet to locate her teammates," Dosu commanded. "I overheard you discussing Orochimaru. What is it that he desires?" Hinata questioned them. "Don't worry, honey. You might learn later. What do you think about giving up and going to the bushes with me since there are 3 of us?" Zaku moistened his mouth. "I apologize, buddy, but I'm taken care of and don't believe that having numbers gives you an advantage," Hinata gave him a snarl. "Unfortunately. Now, listen up. Zankuha," Zaku yelled, decapitating airwaves, and thrust his hand forward, exposing thin tubes from which a strong airwave erupted. Hinata seemed to be lifted off her feet and smashed into a big tree by the blast's immense power. "Unfortunately, honey, I didn't want to ruin your figure," Zaku chuckled, but he stopped when the Hinata exploded in smoke and a log was exposed. From his left, he heard her say, "Too bad indeed. I wanted to have some fun before I killed you. That's too bad. You're so weak." Brushing her hair aside, she said. "What the devil? Zankuha!" Zaku let out another scream, but she simply leapt aside. "Is that your only option?" a disinterested Hinata inquired. "Why do you bite? Look here. Zankukyokuha. Fuck, I think I disintegrated her with that. Extreme daw." And a huge gust of air exploded from his hands, leveling parts of the forest and turning boulders to dust. Sad that he had lost a possible sex toy, Zaku pouted. He was told by Hinata, "You are not that lucky. You could see a perfectly round patch of grass in the middle of the devastation if you looked at where she was standing." Then Hinata grinned and said, "Let me show you the real thing. Kusho Hake, vacuum palm." She said this, and then Zaku was flung off his feet, flew through 2 tree trunks, and landed on a large rocky outcrop on his right side. His arm was dislocated, and there was a sickening crunch. "Zaku!" Dosu yelled. "Why you?" he screamed, lunging toward Hinata and punching her with his melody arm. She just sidestepped him by shifting her body to the side. A bell-like sound was then heard, and chakra gathered in his melody arm. The sound waves traveled in all directions before eventually landing in Hinata's ear, where she collapsed to one knee and clutched her ear as she started to feel lightheaded. "How do you like my melody arm?" Dosu laughed, as he walked toward the fallen girl. Hinata lifted her head and gave him a sly smile. "Can you also play some blues?" The tone was a little fake. His arm went limp and the chakra stopped flowing through it when she tapped a pressure point there. "What?" a scared Dosu inquired. "Oh, stop looking so shocked. Our reliance on the inner ear is negated by the Byakugan. I'll admit that the minor discomfort was rather annoying, but it was manageable. However, I'm shocked that you didn't realize I'm merely playing with you." She pointed at him and said, "If you compare a mouse to a tiger, it's like comparing our chakra levels alone." She then pointed at herself. Then Hinata turned to face Kin, who was shaking. "All right?" Hinata questioned the girl, who recoiled in response. "Please, don't murder us. Take our scroll, please." In an attempt to save her team and herself, she offered. "Your scroll is not necessary for me. If you take these weaklings and go, you can keep it," Hinata growled. "Why yes, ma'am." Kin complied by grabbing Dosu and Zaku and leaving the area. Sasuke groaned as he awoke 2 days later. "At last, man?" Naruto inquired. "What happened to me, Naruto?" "Oh no, hey easy, a curse seal jutsu hit you. Although I was able to prevent it from attaching itself to your chakra system, The seal I applied is more akin to duct tape on a burst pipe. We still need to get to the tower so I can do the real work, but it should hold for about a week until I do. You cannot use chakra externally, as this could cause the seal to break. You've been out like a light for more than 2 days, which should be a sign of how serious this situation is, Naruto clarified. Many thanks. Sasuke gave a nod with a simple smile and a back pat. Naruto said, let's go. After they arrived at the tower and unlocked the scroll, Kakashi emerged from the summoning rites. Hey, he greeted them by saying, you know, Iruka pleaded with me to let him welcome you, but I was concerned about your lengthy arrival. What took place? The crow questioned. Yes, we apologize for being late, Naruto clarified. We had to tango with a snake. Tell me more. Kakashi's visible eye widened, he muttered. After giving him the report, they withdrew to a solitary room, and by the end, all 3 of them had healthy bumps on their heads. That's for both allowing Sasuke to battle a Sannin by himself and for fighting a Sannin by himself. So, Naruto, are you ready to finally resolve Sasuke's issue? Kakashi cautioned them. After looking over his supplies, Naruto exclaimed, shit. What? Kakashi inquired. I've run out of ink. Checking again and leaving disappointed, Naruto said. Well, that isn't an issue since I have some sealing knowledge. I also have some, Kakashi reassured him. Really? Do you have any ink made by Uzu no Kuni? Naruto inquired. What? Kakashi began to perspire. I'll take that as a no, Naruto sighed. For sealing, a variety of ink quality grades are available. Naturally, regular ink from your neighborhood hardware store is the worst. It is strictly prohibited to use these on live targets because they are the most likely to wipe or chip while being used. Normal quality, which can be found in shinobi stores, is much more durable and can therefore be used on living things without risk. However, it must not contain dynamic contents, such as spirits or entities like Biju, or in this case, the energies of the curse seal, because it needs to be reapplied often, is dependent on the user's will or state of consciousness, and can break down more quickly if regular maintenance is not performed. However, the highest quality ink is taken from unique nin ctopus that inhabit the chakra-rich waters near Uzu no Kuni. However, their ink is completely different when it comes to sealing. That ink is used to create Nissan's seal, and it will be a few more years before it even starts to break, the blonde clarified. You can see the ink's quality considering it lasted 12 years with the most powerful dynamic being in existence. Kakashi responded somewhat perplexed. I see, it makes sense that sealing was the hardest shinobi art. I applied my final ink ration to Sasuke's patch seal. Ordering some usually takes a month. Kakashi scowled and said, then we do have a problem. Don't be concerned, Naruto clarified. I ordered some, and the shipment will arrive in 1 or 2 days. I'll go get it after that. The sensei offered. You can't, since the order is on my name, and you can't commandeer it since then it will bring attention on the problem and so Sasuke will still be forced to drop out, Naruto murmured. So it's still not possible to use regular grade seal ink? Kakashi inquired. Even if you use it, there will always be a risk. There is a serious risk that it will crack. Much like a dam, it simply lacks sufficient flexibility. Now what? Hinata inquired. Naruto grinned and said, isn't it clear? They turned to him to find the solution. I'll go out and grab the equipment. After I'm done, you two are free to continue taking the test. Naruto informed them. Sasuke was furious, saying, no, I'm the one who should quit. We got into this mess because of me. Listen, Sasuke, it's best if I do it, Naruto said, swaying his head from side to side. The order and a few other specific supplies that are easily mistaken for worthless junk will be picked up by me, and that will be the last step at the last part. He joked, it's either that or you can go with no nin or genjutsu until we get a break. Then the air became silent. Is that feasible? Sasuke inquired. Yes, it would be effective. I simply submit my resignation and, Naruto started. No, you jerk. Could I still take part if I didn't expel any chakras? Sasuke became furious. Oh, yes, of course. The temporary seal ought to remain intact since the chakra is still being cycled in your body. You should still be able to use your Sharingan and use it to energize your muscles for rapid movement, but that's about it. Even using chakra to adhere to a wall would be risky, Naruto acknowledged. Then I will do that. I'll keep going like this, Sasuke said. Kakashi watched with some concern, asking, will it really be okay? Don't worry, sensei. I've learned my lesson, Sasuke said with a nod. I'll quit before anything happens if there's any danger. After 2 more days, Anko ultimately fulfilled her promise to cut them in half, as only 8 teams, 3 from Suna, 1 from the Sound, and 1 from Iwa, past the forest challenge, the remaining teams were Konoha Genin. An Iwa shinobi with a severely swollen arm and Kabuto Yakushi gave up during the introduction, which I am too lazy to write. Battles Naruto stood anxiously awaiting his turn, but it wasn't because he was excited or anxious about the fight because, aside from his team, he knew deep down that no one could possibly compete against him. When the first contestant's name flashed on screen, he didn't have time to worry much because he was worried about Sasuke and the strength of the seal, knowing that if something went wrong he would have to apply a lower quality seal over it, and improving that later would be a pain, especially considering the rebellious and malevolent chakra that would have to be sealed. Yoroi Akado versus Sasuke Uchiha. Sasuke's superior body speed was evident as they charged at each other, and Yoroi barely managed to dodge the first blow from his fist, which was so powerful that the wind pressure was enough to ruffle the sound shinobi's clothing. Though Yoroi thought, if he socks me even once I'm out, she chose to take a chance and grabbed the offending appendage. Unka. Sasuke let out a painful grunt. Sasuke. With his Shinsogen visibly displaying the chakra drain from Yoroi's peculiar technique, Naruto screamed. Yoroi swiftly released his grip after the Uchiha threw a wild kick, and Sasuke leapt for distance while gripping the back of his neck. Sakura said, "Sasuke-kun appears to be in pain. Why is he being so forgiving of that guy? Normally I would call bubblegum hair moronic, but she has a point," Naruto thought as he heard her. Sasuke should have no trouble hitting this guy even with his chakra sealed. But why is he so slow? Oh shit. He can't deactivate his bands without his chakra. A stunned Naruto whispered. Oh no. Kakashi and Hinata thought, fuck, this guy can force my chakra out of me by absorbing it. Normally I should stay away and blast him from a distance, but I can't without chakra. There is only one thing I could do now. Sasuke, meanwhile, was struggling to catch his slippery opponent and was becoming reckless due to the pain of the initial contact. He threw 3 shuriken at the man who easily evaded them after leaping back a considerable distance. Yoroi grinned and said, "Is that the best you can do?" Until the shuriken attempted to circle him and change direction in midair. When Yoroi noticed the ninja wire attached to them, he attempted to leap high to keep them from falling into Sasuke's trap. Even sealed, Sasuke's body condition was a level or 2 higher than Lee's weighted one, so he leapt after him and quickly caught up to him. Sasuke grunted with satisfaction, "Now you can't escape me." In an attempt to activate his technique, Yoroi frantically grabbed him, but Sasuke easily batted his arms to the side of his body. The Uchiha then yelled, "Take this," and, while still in the air, started pelting the opponent's body with blows. Sasuke was the first to land. He was panting and on one knee, but a smirk was fixed on his face soon after. Yoroi fell. He had indentations on his body that were visible through his clothing, and his body was limp and unconscious. Hayate exclaimed, "Winner Sasuke Uchiha," in between coughs. Without delay, Kakashi lowered himself to his level and raised him to the stands, where Naruto inspected his seal. Phew, still good. There's a small crack on it, but it's cosmetic and doesn't affect its integrity. But as Team 7's official doctor, you are banned from any form of shinobi activity until the permanent solution is applied," Naruto said with a smile after many s and s. He then gave Sasuke a pat and offered some painkillers. After accepting it with gratitude, Sasuke decided to sleep against a wall. With a sigh of relief, Naruto exclaimed, "Now I can enjoy the show." The second pair came into view: Ino Yamanaka versus Sakura Haruno. The fight was worse than a cat's fight. For the most part it appeared as though some kami had pulled a dumb practical joke on them because they were so evenly matched and weak. When Sakura attempted to use some genjutsu on Ino, things became a bit more intriguing. "Sakura no!" Kurenai yelled. It seems that she had not anticipated the scenario in which the Pinkette had to engage in combat with a Yamanaka. Although Yamanaka were just as susceptible to genjutsu as any other shinobi, no one understood the mind's mechanisms better than them. If a novice, such as Sakura, used genjutsu on a member of the clan, they left their own minds open, effectively establishing the connection required for a Yamanaka to infiltrate the genjutsu user's consciousness. And that's precisely what took place. The battle continued until Sakura found her inner strength and forced Ino out of her thoughts. Ultimately, they were both knocked out by a double punch, meaning that neither of them emerged victorious. Masumi Tsurugi versus Kankuro. Kankuro's puppet's knives ultimately turned Masumi into a pin cushion. Tenten versus Temari. Although it was biased in favor of Temari, this fight was far more interesting than Sakura versus Ino. Although both kunoichi were skilled shinobi, Tenten's weakness was Temari's specialty. As the Kasecage's daughter destroyed all of her attempts and weapons, Tenten found himself at the mercy of the Suna kunoichi. The sharp air tore her to shreds, and she was on the verge of tumbling shamefully onto Temari's fan. Enough! Naruto yelled, remembering what he had done for her brother. Temari conjured up a little wind to cushion and slow the weapon user's fall. With a respectful and understanding nod, Naruto said, "Thank you for listening. It's not right to disgrace an opponent who gave it their all." Made a gay. That was very youthful of you, Naruto-kun. Sorry, typo. I apologize. Guys shouted while posing like a good guy. Hinata Hyuga vs Neji Hyuga. Prior to Hinata switching to Ryusei and sweeping the floor with Neji, who congratulated her on her victory, they engaged in a decent and honorable Juken fight. Since I can only imagine exams Neji is a haughty jerk with a mile-long stake up his ass, I ran out of ideas. Nara Shikamaru vs Tsuchi. Kin Shikamaru caused Kin to bang her head against the wall. Shino Aburame vs Dosu Kinuda. After pursuing Shino for some time, Dosu managed to land a solid blow with his melody arm. The fact that the Shino he was fighting was a Mushi Bunshin, bug clone, and that he was now within range for them to swarm him and drain all of his chakra made him believe he had won. He collapsed to the ground, unconscious. Inuzuka Kiba vs Aotsuchi. About 14 years old, Aotsuchi was a stunning kunoichi with long, silky black hair that fell between her shoulder blades and dark, ocean blue eyes. She wore a red outfit consisting of a mesh body underneath, biker shorts, plated fingerless gloves that reached her elbows, standard shinobi sandals, and a leather one-strap battle dress that resembled a cross between an evening gown with an angled skirt and a swordsman's armor. She had normal-sized breasts and all the right curves. At Kiba's forehead protector, she growled following some lewd remarks. Kiba launched his assault using the beast mimicry. The girl ignored all of the boy's attacks and simply stood motionless. This naturally infuriated Kiba, who then attempted to attack Gatsuga using his combination drill and struck the girl from both sides. In response, she used Doden Chakra to harden 2 slabs of the arena floor. The realization that their faces were already embedded in the wall came to poor Kiba and Akamaru. She then used Doden Shinju Zanshu no Jutsu to bury them neck deep in the floor with the aid of a mud clone. She was about to skewer them with a kunai when Hayate intervened and proclaimed her the victor. Rock Lee vs Gaara. Please don't hate me, but Lee and Gaara managed to escape intact, just like in the anime. Suotsuchi vs Choji Akamichi. Any reservations about a cunning god were now completely dispelled. Suotsuchi was a teenager with a massive build. His eyes were obscured by glasses, and his headband covered his short brown hair. He appeared overweight, but that was only his initial impression because he was the tallest genin there, surpassing Meidagai by 5 inches, and his body was composed of more than 95% pure muscle. He had Shino's stoic appearance. Hey Choji. If you win this one I will treat you to an all-you-can-eat barbecue buffet. Asuma grinned as he turned to face his pupil. Fatty! Screamed Ino, who by this point had recovered and added her words to his fighting spirit. Now you've done it, Ino, yelled Choji, his eyes blazing with rage. Begin. Hayate said. Choji instantly shrank back his members and grew into a huge round shape, resembling a gigantic bowling ball as steam filled with chakra blasted out of the place where his head and arms had been. He began to spin around. The Akamichi yelled, Ninpo, Nikuden Sensha, Meatball Tank, and began to speed in Suotsuchi's direction. Choji slammed into the Iwa Genin just as it appeared that he was about to be flattened, but Suotsuchi was unfazed and continued to spin in place. Suo said in a monotone, "Is that all?" "What?" the audience questioned. Doden. Kajugan no Jutsu. Aggravated rock, added weight, said Suo. You add size to your build, I simply add mass. You are too light to move me. Then the Iwa Genin pulled his fist back and punched the meat tank that was still spinning. Poor Choji was hurled toward a wall at a high speed. Suo wasn't prepared for the Akamichi to bounce off the wall like a powerful beach ball and slam back into him. His meatball tank and the extra power were able to overwhelm the Genin boulder, and they both slammed hard into the opposing wall, resulting in a double KO. With a deadpan expression, Naruto said, "That was lame." The sensei agreed. There was no need for the prompter to reveal the contestants when the final battle of the preliminary round finally arrived. Zaku Abumi vs Naruto Uzumaki. The 2 teenagers leapt to the arena and got ready. Naruto saw that Zaku had a makeshift sling on his right arm. On the other hand, Naruto appeared calm despite his anger. Hayate asked, "Ready?" And both of them nodded. "Begin." With composure, Naruto said, "Hit me with all your might, and I'll give you a freebie." Zaku smiled and said, "Hey, you are either stupid or you are confident." "That baka!" shouted Ino, trying to act cool in front of the people standing here. "I don't know about that, Ino," sighed Sakura. "You may not believe me, but Naruto is strong, very strong. I learned that on our joint mission to Nami. Right now whatever instinct I have is telling me that Naruto is toying with his opponent." An insecure Ino responded, "And no way. B, but he was the dead last. He was faking it. He's as strong as Sasuke-kun. Sasuke-kun, Naruto and Hinata. All three of them are hellishly strong, on a whole other level even," Sakura continued. Asuma watched in interest, asking, "Hey Kakashi, is your student right in the noggin?" Kakashi wasn't even bothered by the result of the incident. "Asuma, do you remember the Genin test? I was coming at them with the intent to kill, even though I would have probably stopped before I killed them. It still doesn't cover the fact that I was going all out and they still managed to get me to surrender. Do you honestly think that Genin has any chance against Naruto?" Then Asuma scowled and went back to watching the battle. "So you think you're tough shit? I will show them who rules in this fight," sneered Zaku after hearing some of the remarks. With composure, Naruto replied, "You're wrong." Zaku yelled, airwaves launching from his good arm, "Hey, we'll see about that, Zankuha." They all thought Naruto would be atomized when the dust settled, but instead they saw him standing there, still glaring at Zaku. "What the?" Zaku took a step backward. Naruto sternly told him to stop pretending to be hurt. "That arm of yours is still good, right? Use it too." Back in the bleachers, "Why is Naruto taking his time with this?" replied Sasuke. "He should be able to take him out in less than a second." After discovering the reason, Hinata chose to share, saying, "I thought about that too, and I think I understand why he had this look on him whenever he saw Zaku during his stay in the tower ever since we reported to Kakashi." "You don't think that?" Sasuke started, but Hinata's sigh caused him to stop. "Yes," she replied. "I don't know if I should love him more or clobber him. He is angry. No, he is furious at the boy because of what he said to me in the forest. I think that the only thing stopping him from murdering Zaku in a gruesome way is the fact that I, for a lack of a better term, kicked his ass when we first met, not to imitate Shikamaru but so troublesome." Shikamaru, who had actually woken up to check out what Naruto could do, muttered, "In this case I'm not going to invoke copyright, troublesome blondes." In the arena with his other hand outstretched, Genin screamed, "Zankukyokuha!" Zaku growled, "You know I wanted to see your pained or dying face when I won, but looks like you asked for it. When I hit you with this there won't be an atom left of your body." A tremendous burst of wind pressure erupted from his arm tubes, striking both the wall behind Naruto and the spot where he stood. More tremors were caused by the intensity of it than by Lee slamming Gaara to the ground. Everyone waited patiently for the enormous amount of dust to settle after it was stirred. When it did, they noticed that Naruto was still unfazed despite the gleaming seals on his coat gradually disappearing. "What's that?" Shikamaru inquired. "Naruto-kun is a seal master on the same level as the Yondaime, if not a little above. He planted those seals on all his battle clothes. It creates a shield that can take a lot of punishment before it even starts fading. You can see the strength of the seal by the brightness of symbols. The brighter they are, the more chakra it supplies to the shield and more likely it is to fail. That jutsu barely made them blink," replied Hinata. "Impressive," Shino muttered, and the senseis gave a nod. Naruto is back, fearful and panting. Zaku was retreating when he ran out of cards to play. He came to the conclusion that taijutsu and kunai were useless when Naruto spoke. He was cowering away, about to give up. Naruto yelled, "When I said that you were wrong, I meant that this is not a fight, it is a slaughter," and used a feeble Boido Nami to slam Zaku into the wall. Zaku screamed in agony as Naruto pulled out 7 senbon and pinned him in, 1 in each of his ankles, knees, and wrists, and 1 in his neck, piercing his nerves before the sound shinobi could recover. Everyone who looked closely could see Naruto's hands buzzing and sparking with Raiden chakra as he teleported to his position. "I am guessing you won't apologize to Hinata if I ask you nicely?" "Well, it doesn't matter anyway. I will get the apology out of your body," Naruto growled as he looked into his eyes. Naruto touched a senbon in Zaku's knee, causing lightning chakra to shoot up his pain conduits, causing him to scream, "Ku! Wait, Igia!" Zaku was only able to open one eye and open his flinching mouth. "Did I mention that he is an honorary member of the T&I department and is on the same level with Ibiki?" Kakashi asked, turning his gaze to Asuma. Kiba questioned, "What's the T&I and who's this Ibiki?" Kurenai responded, "The T&I or Torture and Interrogation Division is a place where we extract information from prisoners, spies or traitors, most of the times using less than humane methods to do so. Ibiki Morino is the current head and the second best in the branch. He is so dedicated to his work that he earned the nickname the Sadist." Meanwhile, Zaku was enjoying himself immensely by that. I mean that every time he was about to give up, Naruto would use Raiden chakra to overwhelm his nerves, forcing him to scream and interrupting his attempts. Naruto would not even allow him to pass out by igniting his brain and stimulating the senbon that was stuck in his neck. A little embarrassed by the display, Sakura questioned, "Why isn't the proctor stopping this?" Kakashi responded, "This is a battle simulation as close to the real situation as possible. As long as Naruto doesn't make a move to kill him, this could potentially be a valuable lesson for the kid. Life isn't just some fairy tale and no shinobi is invincible. There may come a time where you are captured and tortured for information. There will be no proctor then to save you from that or anything worse, and this is one of the cleanest methods of torture. The kid's body is virtually intact and only virtual pain is reaching his brain. Also because of that, if he can get control of his pain, he has the chance to escape and turn the tables on Naruto, but apparently he isn't that strong and Naruto knows it." Sakura said, "I see, but do you approve of this, Hinata?" as she cast a sorrowful glance down. Hinata nodded. "Don't get me wrong, Sakura, it's sad and gruesome to do that to another human being, but that's the life we chose. If something like this happens to him and he can't get over it, then he doesn't belong in the shinobi life, even though it's not standard academy curriculum. I went through that kind of treatment too as training, and even worse under Anko-san, the second proctor, because I knew that if something happens and I wasn't ready I could endanger the ones I love. Naruto still doesn't know that I don't approve of it, but I accept it." Sakura appeared to have finally come to terms with the fact that Hinata had to go through that and more. After 5 minutes, however, Naruto grew weary of it and stopped, causing Zaku to fall off the senbon and fall to the ground. Unconscious and unable to control his body's functions, he was trembling and perspiring as he lay in a pool of blood, saliva, sweat, piss, and shit, the fluids seeping through his clothing. As Zaku was carried away by medics, Naruto leapt back to the stands without even glancing at him. Now that the sad part was over, the Hokage congratulated the winners and encouraged the losers to determine who they would face in the finals. They proceeded to draw lots. This was the final draw. Hinata Hyuga vs Naruto Uzumaki Damari vs Shikamaru Nara against Aotsuchi, Shino Aburame Gaara against Sasuke Uchiha Kankuro vs Match 1 winner. Thus, the preliminary steps came to an end.
So that's it for today. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe to the channel for more awesome stories like this. Thank you. See you all in my next video.